I have just two clarifications to ask the Honourable Minister at paragraph number 12. There is a general statement at a number of paragraphs regarding India's leadership role in the technology front. On the specific question of trusted cross-border data flow, as well as to deal with virtual digital assets, would India be considering promotion of a global body to have a principle-based global order on the lines of the WTO, or would it like to do this entire thing within the ambit of WTO? The second clarification, sir, is that all over the world, wherever I travel, the question of inequity, particularly in the areas of health, area of education, digital inequity, these arise, but in Africa, for example. Would India be taking the lead?
आवाज में बात करें या तो न करें, अच्छा होगा कि न करें, बहुत आवश्यक है तो जरा धीमी आवाज में करें। सो दैट अब वो मैं नाम नहीं ले सकता हूं, मैं अभी नहीं लूंगा, बाद में। आई थिंक प्लीज ओके।
Sir, road safety seems to be a big challenge in our country, and I'd like to raise this issue regarding Navle Bridge in my constituency, which is the Nare area in Pune city and Khadakwasla area. Since 2021 took 17 lives and seriously injured 24 people. On November 21st, a series of accidents continued because a truck lost its control and about 40 vehicles caused a large pile of damaged vehicles on that road. The bridge has become a black spot for accidents due to the combination of steep inclines and turns and downward slopes, which have been reduced in the first measure of the check of the accidents. I have time and again raised this issue, and the service roads also need to be spruced up. But the accident somehow had stopped for about 6 months. But in order to ensure that people follow traffic rules and sufficient presence of police along the highway is much needed. Although National Highway, Police and Municipal Corporation of Pune have taken several steps in the past, but we have not been able to get a zero accident area as yet. So I would request the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways to look into the matter and take some very concrete steps, because it's a very large highway and we lose a lot of innocent lives here. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Shri MP Abdul Samad Samadani.
Thank you, sir. Sir, through you, I would like to draw the attention of the government and the Honorable Minister for Civil Aviation especially to a serious crisis that has occurred in the much awaited development process of the Kozhikode International Airport in Kerala. Sir, this crisis has taken place in the completion of the official formalities of the development project of the airport. The crisis, which is related with the financial aspect of the project, can be solved by effective and positive coordination between the central and state government departments and the governments. Sir, I therefore request the Honourable Minister of Civil Aviation to initiate such a move for coordination between the central government and the state government, and to do the needful for starting the delayed development work of the airport at the earliest. Meanwhile, there are reports that the concerned authorities may be deciding to reduce the length of the airport runway, considering the non-completion of the essential official formalities by the concerned. Therefore, sir, I request the government to cancel that idea, which was already given up by the Honourable Minister on the request of members of Parliament representing the area. The curtailment of the runway will be very harmfully affecting the well-being, welfare, the day-to-day functioning and future development of this airport, this international airport, on which a large number of passengers, including the Pravasis, depend. Sir, this very important development work of the airport has to continue, and the curtailment of the runway, the idea has to be withdrawn, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Shri Subrat Pathak ji.
धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष जी। मैं बहुत एक गंभीर समस्या के ऊपर आपका ध्यान आकृष्ट करना चाहता हूं। आपके माध्यम से सरकार को ध्यान में कि देश में ऑटिज्म और सेरेब्रल पाल्सी के मरीजों की संख्या में वृद्धि हो रही है। एक आंकड़े के अनुसार हमारे देश में 10 वर्ष से कम उम्र के हर 100 बच्चों में से एक बच्चा ऑटिज्म का शिकार है। स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय को इस दिशा में कारगर प्रयास किए जाने की आवश्यकता है। यहाँ यह उल्लेख करना महत्वपूर्ण है कि अब तक ऑटिज्म और सेरेब्रल पाल्सी की CGHS की सूचीबद्ध बीमारियों के पैनल में शामिल नहीं किया गया है, जिससे सरकारी क्षेत्र के कर्मियों को अपने ऊपर ही निर्भर रहकर इलाज कराना पड़ता है और लोगों को इलाज कराने में बड़ी मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ता है। कई तो ऐसे लोग हैं कि जिनके पास में इलाज के लिए कभी कभी उनको अपना खेत तक गिरवी रखना पड़ता है, खेत बेचना पड़ता है, कर्जा लेना पड़ता है। ऐसी तमाम सारी समस्याओं से उनको जूझना पड़ता है। इसलिए इस इलाज में मरीजों की थेरेपी का भी बहुत बड़ा योगदान होता है। इससे संबंधित थेरेपी को भी CGHS के अंतर्गत लाने का प्रावधान किए जाने की आवश्यकता है। इसके अलावा हमारे देश के कुछ संस्थानों में ऑटिज्म पीड़ित बच्चों का स्टेम सेल थेरेपी के माध्यम से आधुनिकतम तरीके से इलाज हो रहा है, लेकिन इस इलाज में भी अधिक खर्च होता है, जिसे वहन करना सभी माता पिता अभिभावक के लिए आसान नहीं होता है। हमारे क्षेत्र में मेरी जानकारी में कई ऐसे लोग हैं कि जो इसको लेकर उनको या तो प्रॉपर जानकारी नहीं सही से मिल पाती है और उसके बाद में वो जाते भी हैं तो कई बार भटकते रहते हैं, और चूंकि ये इलाज सभी जगह उपलब्ध नहीं है तो इसलिए भी बड़ी समस्या होती है। तो इसलिए खर्चे का भी उनको अधिक खर्चा करना पड़ता है। इसलिए इस बीमारी को अविलंब CGHS की सूचीबद्ध बीमारियों के पैनल में शामिल किए जाने की आवश्यकता है, ताकि लाभार्थियों को ऑटिज्म पीड़ित अपने बच्चों को इलाज कराने की अनुमति मिल सके। कई जगह से मेरी सूचना में भी ये आया है कि कई जगह से इनको लौटा दिया गया है, तो इनको लौटाया ना जाए और सभी जगह के ऊपर इसकी व्यवस्था हो। इसके अलावा आपके माध्यम से मेरा यह भी अनुरोध है कि ऑटिज्म और सेरेब्रल पाल्सी को CGHS के साथ साथ अनिवार्य रूप से निजी चिकित्सा बीमा योजना में भी शामिल किया जाए, जिससे देश के लाखों लोगों को इसका लाभ मिल सके, क्योंकि लाखों लोग इससे पीड़ित हैं। इसलिए अध्यक्ष जी, इस ओर विशेष ध्यान दिया जाए, यही आग्रह करूंगा। धन्यवाद।
हमारे श्री तेजस्वी सूर्या जी नहीं है, देवजी भाई नहीं है। अभी माननीय विदेश मंत्री जी का राज्यसभा में वक्तव्य चल रहा है, कुछ समय उनको लग सकता है, तब तक हमारे कुछ माननीय सदस्य शून्य प्रहर में रहने बोलने से वंचित रह गए थे, उनको कुछ अवसर देते हैं। श्री NK प्रेमचंद्रन जी।
Thank you very much, Chairman sir. I would like to raise a very serious matter of urgent concern, in which the involvement of the Ministry of Labour is required. That is regarding the Employees Pension Scheme 1995. Honourable Chairman, it may kindly see, on 4th November 2022, the Honourable Supreme Court has delivered a judgment in respect of Employees Pension Scheme 1995 regarding the higher pension on the basis of actual salary. The matter was heard by various High Courts of India, Kerala High Court, Rajasthan High Court, Delhi High Court, and delivered their judgments. Against the judgments of these various High Courts, Government of India, Labour Ministry and Employees Provident Fund Organisation has preferred a special leave appeal, and that appeal has been rejected and dismissed by the learned Supreme Court, and subsequently review petition was filed, and the review petition was further allowed, and they delivered a detailed judgment. Sir, the judgment is affecting millions of workers in the country, those who are in the service and also those who are out of service who have already opted pension. In such a situation, it is having series of ramifications are there as far as the judgment is concerned. So my point is, as per the judgment of 2022, that is Employees Pension Scheme, those who have not opted for higher pension on the basis of the actual salary, they are entitled to opt for the pension within 4 months from the date of the judgment. judgment. So the date of judgment was on 4/11/2022. But it is quite unfortunate to note that the Employees Provident Fund organization has not yet taken any step so as to implement the order of the Supreme Court judgment. That will be adversely affecting the poor workers. And another point is those who have already retired prior to 1/9/2014, they are not entitled for opting higher pension. But at the same time, sir, 1 second. But at the same time, the R.C. Gupta judgment is approved and ratified in the judgment. So there is an ambiguity as far as the employees' pension scheme is concerned. So my point is, the government of India should come out with a clear statement as far as the implementation of the Supreme Court judgment regarding implementation of the order, as well as those who already retired before 1/9/2014. When I would urge upon the Labour Ministry to come out with a statement for the implementation of the judgment at the earliest, so as to protect the interests of the millions of workers.
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। मैं जिस इलाके से आता हूं वहां 3 ऐसी घटनाएं हो गई सर सभापति महोदय, जो देश को जानने लायक है कि पूरा का पूरा जो आदिवासी समाज है, शेड्यूल 5 का जिला है, जो संथाल पड़ना पूरा इलाका है, उसमें 3 अभी हत्याकांड ऐसा हुआ जिसमें कि घर में घुस के लड़की को जला दिया गया। हम बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ की बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन चाहे वो दुमका में हो, चाहे काठीकुंड में हो, चाहे मेरे लोकसभा जरमुंडी में हो सर, और पिरपैंती में भी अभी हुआ है सर, जो मेरा अपना खुद का विधानसभा है जहां का मैं वोटर हूं। ये चारों जगह जो चीजें दिखाई दे रही हैं, और लगातार मैं इस पार्लियामेंट में बोलता रहा हूं सर कि वोट बैंक का सवाल नहीं है। सवाल यह है कि जो आपका जिला मुर्शिदाबाद है, मालदा है, कटिहार है, किशनगंज है, भागलपुर है, गोड्डा है, दुमका है, देवघर है, जामताड़ा है, पाकुड़ है, इन सबों का डेमोग्राफी बदल गया। और डेमोग्राफी यदि पूरे देश के पॉपुलेशन के बढ़ोतरी को यदि आप लेंगे, और यदि मेरे इलाके और जो बिहार का पार्ट है, जो बंगाल का पार्ट है, जो संथालपन्ना झारखंड का पार्ट है, उसमें अचानक पॉपुलेशन बहुत बढ़ा है। और पॉपुलेशन बढ़ा है मुसलमानों का, उन मुसलमानों का जो बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठी हैं। और बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठियों को धर्म के आधार पर यदि आप देखते हैं तो एक बड़ा सवाल पैदा होता है कि आपकी बहू सुरक्षित है कि नहीं, बेटी सुरक्षित है कि नहीं। ये 4 घटनाएं तो मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि जो कि हत्या कर दी गई, दिन दहाड़े हत्या कर दी गई। लेकिन जो एक बड़ा ट्रेंड डेवलप हुआ है और पूरे देश को जानने वाला सवाल है सर, कि आदिवासी लड़कियों के साथ मुसलमान शादी कर रहा है, और शादी करके उनके जो बच्चे हो रहे हैं वो मुसलमान हो रहे हैं। जब झारखंड अलग हुआ तो उस वक्त पाकुड़ एक जिला है हमारे यहां जिसका पॉपुलेशन 30% 32% मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन था, आज वो 66% पर हो गया है। मैं जब गोड्डा में पहली बार चुनाव लड़ने के लिए गया 2009 में अध्यक्ष महोदय, तो उस वक्त जो है केवल और केवल 2 लाख मुसलमान थे, आज 4 लाख मुसलमान हैं। क्या ये यहां के मुसलमानों का रोजगार नहीं छीन रहे? क्या एएसआई और पीएफआई की जो एक्टिविटी है इस देश को तोड़ नहीं रही है? पूरे दुनिया का जो भी साइबर क्राइम हो रहा है वो सब मेरे इलाके में हो रहा है। यदि आप देखेंगे जामताड़ा नाम का नेटफ्लिक्स पर एक बड़ा सीरियल हो चुका है, और वो सब बांग्लादेशी मुसलमान और घुसपैठिए कर रहे हैं। मेरा आपके माध्यम से सरकार से आग्रह है कि ये समय आ गया है कि नेशनल पॉपुलेशन रजिस्टर बनाइए, जो बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठिए हैं उसको बाहर करिए, और जो आदिवासियों के नाम पर जो प्रताड़ित हो रही हैं महिलाएं, जो शादी करके धर्मांतरण कर रहे हैं और जिसके ऊपर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन किया है, उसको आप रोकने का प्रयास करें। धन्यवाद सर।
सभापति महोदय, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं आपका ध्यान एक बहुत ही संवेदनशील और दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण मामले की ओर आकर्षित करना चाहता हूं। गत 30 अगस्त 2002 से सभापति महोदय, हमारे नौसेना के 8 जो सेवानिवृत्त अधिकारी हैं, उनको कतर में दोहा में सॉलिटरी कन्फाइनमेंट में रखा गया है। और उनके खिलाफ क्या आरोप है, ना उनको वो आरोप बताए गए हैं, ना उनके परिवारों को वो आरोप बताए गए हैं। और 90 दिन सॉलिटरी कन्फाइनमेंट में रखने के बाद जब उनको 1 दिसंबर 2002 को एक अदालत के सामने पेश किया गया, उनकी सॉलिटरी कन्फाइनमेंट की अवधि फिर 30 दिन के लिए बढ़ा दी गई। मैं सभापति महोदय आपके माध्यम से अनुरोध करना चाहता हूं विदेश मंत्री भी अभी आएंगे अपने बिल को सदन के पटल पर रखने के लिए कि ये बहुत ही गंभीर मामला है। हमने 4 दिसंबर 2002 को नेवी डे मनाया है और ऐसी परिस्थिति में एक पड़ोसी देश में हमारे 8 सेवानिवृत्त नौसेना के अधिकारी अगर 120 दिन से ज्यादा सॉलिटरी कन्फाइनमेंट में हों और ना उनको बताया गया, ना उनके परिवारों को बताया गया और शायद भारतीय दूतावास को भी नहीं बताया गया कि उनके खिलाफ क्या आरोप है, ये बहुत ही एक दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण बात है। मैं आपके माध्यम से सरकार से अनुरोध करना चाहता हूं कि कतर की सरकार के साथ इस मामले को तुरंत उठाया जाए और ये जो 8 लोग हैं इनको रिहा कराकर हिंदुस्तान वापस लाया जाए।
डॉक्टर संजय जायसवाल जी।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। बिहार में संविधान की धज्जियां उड़ रही हैं। बिहार में जो भी स्कूल हैं उसमें बिल्कुल साफ नियम है कि जो सरकारी स्कूल है वह रविवार को बंद होंगे और जो उर्दू स्कूल है वह शुक्रवार को बंद होंगे। और इसमें मुझे कुछ नहीं कहना है, लेकिन पूरे सीमांचल क्षेत्र में चाहे वो किशनगंज हो, पूर्णिया हो, अररिया हो, सभी जगहों पर शुक्रवार को छुट्टी दी जा रही है। जो भारत सरकार अपना मध्याह्न भोजन शुक्रवार को देती है वो बढ़ता नहीं है, वह पूरा का पूरा पैसे का घोटाला हो रहा है। और संविधान से ऊपर व्यक्ति कैसे हो सकता है? जब मेरे क्षेत्र में मझरिया में एक उर्दू स्कूल है, एक भी अल्पसंख्यक बच्चा वहां नहीं पढ़ता है, फिर भी जबरदस्ती शुक्रवार को वहां छुट्टी कराई जाती है यह कहते हुए कि यह उर्दू स्कूल है, जबकि वहां एक भी अल्पसंख्यक बच्चा नहीं है। वही सीमांचल के क्षेत्र में एक पूरी साजिश के तहत जो एक पूरे इलाके में बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठियों के कारण शुक्रवार को स्कूल में छुट्टी कराई जा रही है, उस दिन का मध्याह्न भोजन का घोटाला हो रहा है और बिहार सरकार पूरी तरह से चुप है। अभी पीरपैंती में भी श्रीमती नीलम देवी जी की जघन्य हत्या हुई है और वहां का पुलिस अधीक्षक कहता है कि नहीं, यह मामला उधार लेने का है और उधर कोई अल्पसंख्यक पूरे समाज को वह अपमानित कर रहे हैं। अगर एक महिला की इस बुरी तरह हत्या की जाती है और आप इसको समाज उधार से जोड़ रहे हैं तो यह बहुत ही शर्मनाक बात है।
श्री ईटी मोहम्मद बशीर जी।
Thank you very much. Sir, I wish to draw the kind attention of this House and the government towards an injustice done against lakhs and lakhs of students who are depending pre-matric scholarship. So this pre-matric scholarship was now abandoned. It is cancelled. Government of India has not said any specific reason, sir. Sir, you may be knowing that poor students, this is scholarship, you have to realize. This was under Ministry of Social Justice and Ministry of Tribal Affairs. So you can very well imagine, sir, how important was this. Lakhs of students, they were depending upon this scholarship only, sir. Not only that, the cruelty in that is something more. Because everything was going on nicely. Application was invited, it was scrutinized, and they were waiting for the final order. Unfortunately, in a fine morning, Government of India decided to withdraw that. 1 to 8 class. 1 to 8 class, poor students. These poor students, they were depending this because, sir, this was a very, very important motivation for the students, relief for the students. Such poor students were enjoying that, sir. We have to realize one thing more, sir. Government, I would like to ask the Honorable Minister, what is that you are going to gain out of this? What benefit is you are going to have it, except doing some hardship to the poor students? Sir, I humbly submit, it's a humanitarian kind of question. I humbly request the government not to proceed this kind of these things. Kindly restore that and clear the backlog. These are my humble submissions, sir. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
सभा, देश के लिए बहुत अच्छा दिन है। पिछड़ों में से जो उपराष्ट्रपति बने, आज उन्होंने राज्यसभा में नेतृत्व किया, ये बहुत ही सौभाग्य की बात है। और पिछले दिनों देश के लिए सौभाग्य की बात है कि एसटी क्लास से राष्ट्रपति बनाए गए। उसी क्रम में जम्मू कश्मीर से संबंधित पिछड़ों में से, जिसमें जाट, गुजर, यादव, पाल, सैनिक, कसर, सुनार, लोहार, कुम्हार, तमाम पिछड़ी जातियां आती हैं और दलित जो 22% के करीब हैं, तो जम्मू कश्मीर में आजादी से अभी तक उनका शोषण होता रहा, पिछड़ों का भी, दलितों का भी। और 370 हटने के बाद जो खास करके वहां एसटी क्लास में आते हैं, गुजर मुसलमान या गुजर बकरवाल, उनके लिए सरकार ने बहुत अच्छा सोचा और 10% का उनके लिए रिजर्वेशन दिया, जो पहली सरकारों ने कभी रिजर्वेशन नहीं दिया। उनका शोषण हुआ, वोट ली, रिश्तेदारियां करी, पर करा कुछ नहीं। ये बहुत ही अच्छी बात है। लेकिन पिछले दिनों कांग्रेस और नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस और पीडीपी ने उनको गुमराह करने के लिए एक चाल चली है कि तुम्हारा जो आरक्षण हो 10% हुआ है, उसमें 10% जो आरक्षण हुआ है उसमें दूसरी जातियों को लेके आ रहे हैं। तो मैं आपके माध्यम से कहना चाहता हूं सरकार से, सरकार सहानुभूति पूर्वक उनके बारे में सोचे और जो 10% आरक्षण उनका है वो कम ना करा जाए। अगर कुछ जातियां ली जाए तो प्रोपोर्शनेटली प्रो डेटा बेसिस अलग से उनका आरक्षण कराया जाए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय।
चलिए आप स्लिप भेजिए, स्लिप भेजिए, स्लिप भेजिए जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। मैं अपने लोकसभा क्षेत्र के अति महत्वपूर्ण विषय आपके समक्ष रखना चाहता हूं। पिछले कई बार मैंने इसको सदन में रखने का काम किया। मेरा लोकसभा क्षेत्र का अति महत्वपूर्ण जो धलभुंगड़ एयरपोर्ट है वो उड़ान स्कीम में है और लगातार हम लोग प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि उसका काम शुरू किया जाए। पिछले सरकार जब हमारे थे उस समय हमारे माननीय एविएशन मिनिस्टर स्टेट जयंत सिन्हा जी भी यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं। 2019 में जनवरी महीना में उसका भूमि पूजन भी किया गया था, लेकिन आज तक इसका शुरुआत नहीं हुआ क्योंकि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का अनदेखी का चलते आज तक शुरू नहीं हुआ। क्योंकि जमशेदपुर एयरपोर्ट इसलिए जरूरी है क्योंकि वहाँ टाटा जैसे घराना 8-10 बड़े उद्योग है। वही आदित्यपुर इंडस्ट्री बेल्ट में लगभग हजारों उद्योग है जो कि विभिन्न क्षेत्र में लोग अपना बिजनेस का पर्पस में जाते हैं। वही यूरेनियम जैसा, कॉपर जैसा माइंस भी है, आयरन और का है। तो मेरा आपके माध्यम से ही कहना है कि सिर्फ ये झारखंड के सीमावर्ती इलाका नहीं बल्कि उड़ीसा के बालेश्वर वो औद्योगिक क्षेत्र है, आदित्यपुर उद्योग क्षेत्र है, पश्चिम बंगाल के खड़गपुर वो भी औद्योगिक क्षेत्र है और मात्र 72 किलोमीटर, 59 किलोमीटर, 46 किलोमीटर में। मैं आपको आपके माध्यम से माननीय एविएशन मंत्रालय से आग्रह करना चाहता हूं कि राज्य सरकार से अविलंब बात करके उनका मनसा साफ करते हुए, क्योंकि झारखंड में जो अति आवश्यक है उसको नजरअंदाज करके अभी देवघर में हमारे निशिकांत दुबे जी अभी नया नया एयरपोर्ट खोले, वो अभी दुमका का बात कर रहे हैं। तो दुमका महज 32 किलोमीटर है और जमशेदपुर अति महत्वपूर्ण है, उसका तरफ नहीं जाते। लेकिन आपके माध्यम से मैं माननीय मंत्रालय और माननीय मंत्री से निवेदन करना चाहता हूँ, टाटा जैसा जमशेदपुर सारे उद्योग घराना है, इंडस्ट्री बेल्ट के साथ साथ तो माइंस इलाका है, उसके जल्द से जल्द। और चाकुलिया में भी एयरपोर्ट है, वहाँ पूरी उद्योग नगरी है। इसलिए आपके माध्यम से अनुरोध करना चाहता हूँ कि धलभुंगड़ का एयरपोर्ट जो हमारे उड़ान स्कीम में है उसका जल्द से जल्द शुरू किया जाए। धन्यवाद।
श्री रवनीत सिंह जी।
नहीं चेयरमैन साहब, थैंक यू। तो आप बहुत अच्छी तरह से जानते हैं पंजाब में हमारे बहुत ही मशहूर नामवर सिंगर सिद्धू मूसेवाला, बहुत बुरी तरह उन्हें एक बहुत बड़ी गैंग वॉर में पंजाब में मार दिया गया। और कुछ ही दिन पहले राजस्थान में बहुत बड़ा शूट आउट हुआ है। सर, एक पंजाब गैंगलैंड बन के रह गया है। वहां पे सरकार रोज आना, वहां पे कत्ल हो रहे हैं और दोबारा पुराना माहौल जैसे था पंजाब में टेररिज्म वाला माहौल लाया जा रहा है। सर, मेरी आपसे गुजारिश है, क्योंकि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, होम मिनिस्टर भी उसमें मिनिस्ट्री लगी हुई है और जो उसके मारने वाले हैं वो कनाडा, अमेरिका में बैठे हैं, पाकिस्तान में बैठे हैं। सर, उसके ऊपर लुकआउट नोटिस भी जारी किया हुआ है, क्योंकि पंजाब सरकार, पंजाब पुलिस बहुत अच्छी है लेकिन सरकार वहां की बिल्कुल फेल हो चुकी है। सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को अपने हाथ में ये लेके, क्योंकि वो बहुत बाहर के देश, वहां से वो ये काम कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनके माँ बाप रोज तड़फ रहे हैं। सर, इतने बड़े नामवर सिंगर और अनेकों उसकी तरह जो नौजवान मारे जा रहे हैं, उनको न्याय मिले, उनके माँ बाप कहीं ये तो सोच सकें भी हमारा बेटा चला गया और उसका हमें जिसने मारा उनको सजा तो मिली। तो इसलिए सर, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को आपके माध्यम से मैं गुजारिश करता हूं, ये पंजाब में कत्लेआम बंद हो और दोबारा जो टेररिज्म वाले हालात बने हैं वो
उनको ढूंढ के यहाँ पे सजा दिलवाई जाए, जिससे सिद्धू मूसेवाले जैसे परिवारों को आराम आ सके।
फसल बीमा योजना, ये जो केंद्र सरकार किसानों के लिए जो योजना लाई है सर, इसमें आपने अगर किसानों से डायरेक्टली हम जब बात करते हैं तो मेजॉरिटी प्रॉब्लम्स ही उसमें आती हैं। एक तो 72 आवर्स में जाके आपके नुकसान जहां पर हुआ है उसकी फोटो क्लिक करके आप पहले कंपनियों को भेजिए, जहां इंटरनेट चलता है, हमको कनेक्शन मिलता है, वहां से तो फोटो भेज दिए जाते हैं। पर आप एक जगह बोलते हैं घरकुल इसलिए कैंसिल किया जाता है क्योंकि इनके पास एंड्रॉइड फोन है, और किसान अगर एंड्रॉइड फोन स्मार्ट फोन चलाता है और उसके बाद भी अगर कनेक्शन नहीं मिलता है तो 72 घंटे में जाकर वो अपनी फसल की फोटो नहीं भेज पाता है, कंपनियों को नहीं पहुंच पाता है। फसल बीमा में सर 1 मिनट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि किसानों का मुद्दा है और जहां हमारी सरकार उन्हें बहुत मदद करना चाहती है, इसलिए योजना का लाभ डायरेक्टली उनको पहुंचना चाहिए, पर उसमें इतनी त्रुटियां हैं कि उसे सॉल्व करना बहुत जरूरी है। डायरेक्टली वो बेनिफिट कंपनियों को हो रहा है, किसानों को नहीं हो रहा है सर। किसान अगर 50,000 भरते हैं, लाख रुपया भरते हैं, 1.5 लाख रुपया भरते हैं, उसके रिटर्न में 0 पैसे उन्हें मिले जा रहे हैं। तो इसके लिए इस पे डिस्कशन करके इसकी त्रुटियां निकालना बहुत जरूरी है। हमारे कृषि मंत्री जी भी यहाँ पर बैठे हैं। मैं विनंती करूंगी सर, जहां पर हम सभी को फायदा पहुंचाने की बात करें, किसानों को इसमें लाभ नहीं हो रहा है, सीधा उनका नुकसान हो रहा है। पैसे देने के बाद कंपनियों को डबल मुनाफा होता है और हम हमारे किसानों को 0 से हम रह जाते हैं। तो आपसे विनंती करूंगी किसानों को इसके ऊपर कुछ ना।
बहुत शुक्रिया जनाब, एक बड़ा ही अर्जेंट मसला उठाने के लिए। जनाब आजकल कश्मीर में सब 0 टेम्परेचर है, 0 से नीचे पारा गया है। तो आज ही वहाँ पर जो फराहमी है बिजली की वो सबसे कम है और ये अनप्रेसिडेंटेड है इस साल। और अनरेगुलेटेड जो पावर कट्स हैं, जो शटडाउन से स्ट्रीम लाइन कर ये तवक्को की जाती थी कि पावर स्ट्रीम किया जाए और उसकी जो सप्लाई है वो ज़्यादा बेहतर बनाई जाए। उसके मुकाबले में जनाब इस साल तो हालत और भी बदतर हो गई है। तो मेरी ये गुजारिश होगी कि कोई 2500 मेगावाट के करीब वहाँ बिजली की ज़रूरत है रोज़ाना, उसके मुकाबले में सिर्फ 1600 के करीब वहाँ सप्लाई की जाती है। एक तो वहाँ लोकली स्ट्रीमलाइन किया जाए, रेगुलेट किए जाए जो भी पावर कट्स हैं, शटडाउन से, और दूसरी यहाँ से बिजली की जो फराहमी है वो इंक्रीज़ की जाए ताकि ऑप्टिमम लेवल तक 2500 मेगावाट तक जो भी रिक्वायरमेंट हो वो उस तक वहाँ बिजली फराहम की जाए और लोगों को सब 0 टेम्परेचर में, जबकि इस वक्त फ्रीजिंग से नीचे चला गया टेम्परेचर, तो उसमें उनको असुविधा न हो।
श्रीमती जसकौर मीणा जी।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभापति जी। मैं एक ऐसे अति महत्वपूर्ण और वर्तमान में चल रहे एक बहुत किसानों के प्रति अन्याय को दिखाना चाहती हूँ कि भारत जोड़ो यात्रा के अंतर्गत राजस्थान के 3 जिलों में जहां 23 लाख पौधे अमरूद का फल देते हैं, यहाँ 3000 गाड़ियां उनकी यहाँ दिल्ली में आती हैं, नेशनल हाईवे बंद कर दिए, स्टेट हाईवे बंद कर दिए। ऐसी परिस्थिति में किसान अपने फलों को रास्ते में ही पटक रहे हैं और किसान बर्बादी के कगार पर हैं। मेरा आपसे अनुरोध है कि नेशनल हाईवे और हाईवे बंद नहीं होने चाहिए और ना ही राजस्थान की सरकार ने कोई प्रोसेसिंग यूनिट वहां स्थापित की ताकि वो अपने पके हुए फल को वहां दे सके। मैं आपके माध्यम से ये कहूं कि भारत जोड़ो यात्रा, ये जोड़ो यात्रा नहीं, किसानों के लिए, भारत किसानों को तोड़ने की यात्रा जो चालू हो रही है, इसमें राजस्थान की सरकार का पूरा हाथ है और वहाँ रंगारंग कार्यक्रम करते हैं और उधर किसान बर्बाद हो रहे हैं।
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. My submissions regarding the Sabri project. So, Angamali-Erimeli railway line will provide connectivity to the National Pilgrim Center Sabrimala with many other pilgrim centers, including Kaladi, the birthplace of Shankaracharya, Baranangaram, the shrine church of St. Alphonsa, Erimeli, the center of religious fraternity. The railway line will connect 14 commercial and industrial centers of Kerala. It will have a great impact on the pilgrim tourism potential of the state, overall development of the Ernakulam, Idukki, Kottayam and Pathanamthitta district. Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi has directed to include this railway line project into the Pragati 4 platform on 26th October. However, due to various reasons, the project did not progress and led to the freezing of the project by the railway on September. Sir, Government of Kerala has informed Railway Board the willingness to share 50% of the cost of Angamali Erimeli Sabari new project. Considering the importance of the project, the overall development of the state, boost the pilgrim tourism, commerce, industries, urbanization, public transport, etc., and the fact that government of Kerala has agreed to bear 50% of the cost of the project, I urge on the government to include Angamali Erimeli Sabari railway line to the Prime Minister's Gadi Shakti project and approving the revised estimate with a facility of Vande Bharat rail service. Thank you.
श्री विनायक राव राउत जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। खास करके महाराष्ट्र के किसानों की समस्या मैं आपके माध्यम से सरकार के ध्यान में लाना चाहता हूं। इस वक्त महाराष्ट्र के कई क्षेत्रों में भारी वर्षा होने की वजह से जो फसल आ रही थी वो पूरी तरीके से बर्बाद हो चुकी, चाहे वो धान हो, कपास हो, सोयाबीन हो, और बरसात के वजह से, भारी वर्षा के वजह से फसल किसानों को मिलने के जब वक्त था तभी न मिलने के बाद आज किसानों के सामने बहुत बड़ी समस्या निर्माण हुई कि हम भविष्य में कैसे जी सके। और ना सरकार मदद करते, किसानों की मांग है एसडीआरएफ में बढ़ोतरी होनी चाहिए, एनडीआरएफ के जो नॉर्म्स है उसमें बढ़ोतरी होनी चाहिए, किसानों को मदद मिलना चाहिए, फसल बीमा स्कीम की भी मदद सही वक्त पे मिलनी चाहिए, बिजली की सप्लाई नहीं हो रही है।
विनायक राव, आप बोल चुके हैं 0 आवर में आज?
नहीं, वो रिकॉर्ड में नहीं आया था।
नहीं, बोल चुके हैं, दोबारा नहीं। तो खत्म करता हूँ
जी,
तो नहीं, खत्म करने के लिए काट भी अलाउ। आप जी बोल चुके हैं एक बार, तो प्लीज आपको भी ध्यान रखना था। कोई बात, हाँ प्लीज।
நன்றி அவைத்தலைவர் அவர்களே।
नो 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 नो, इट कांट बी लाइक दैट, प्लीज प्लीज।
நன்றி அவைத்தலைவர் அவர்களே। நாடு முழுவதும் ஆன்லைன் சூதாட்டத்தை தடை செய்ய வேண்டும்। ஆன்லைன் சூதாட்டத்தால் பலரும் தற்கொலை செய்து வந்து இருக்கக்கூடிய நிலையிலே ஆன்லைன் சூதாட்டத்தை தடை செய்ய வேண்டும் என்று கேட்டுக்கொள்கின்றேன்। தமிழகத்திலே ஆன்லைன் சூதாட்டத்தை தடை செய்வதற்கு மக்கள் பிரதிநிதிகள் சட்டமன்றத்திலே சட்டம் இயற்றி தீர்மானம் நிறைவேற்றி ஆளுநருடைய ஒப்புதலுக்கு அனுப்பி ஆளுநர் அதற்கு ஒப்புதல் அளிக்காமல் இன்னும் அந்த தற்கொலை உயிரிழப்பு அதிகரித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கின்றது। மக்களால் தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்பட்ட பிரதிநிதிகளெல்லாம் இணைந்து பெரும்பான்மையாக ஒருமனதாக இயற்றப்பட்ட தீர்மானத்தை ஆளுநர் ஒப்புதல் அளிக்காமல் அங்கே உயிரிழப்பு அதிகரித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கின்றது। எந்த விதத்திலும் மக்களால் தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்படாத ஆளுநர் இந்த மசோதாவை இழுத்தடித்து கொண்டிருக்கின்றார்। கிட்டத்தட்ட இந்த ஆன்லைன் சூதாட்ட தடை மசோதா உள்ளிட்ட 22 மசோதாக்களுக்கு மக்களால் தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்பட்ட சட்டசபையில் நிறைவேற்றிய மசோதாவை ஆளுநர் ஒப்புதல் அளிக்காது தமிழக சட்டப்பேரவை மட்டுமல்ல 8 கோடி தமிழர்களையும் அவமதிக்கக்கூடிய செயல் ஆளுநரை, ஒன்றிய அரசினுடைய பிரதிநிதியாக இருக்கக்கூடிய ஆளுநரை அரசு।
माननीय मंत्री श्रीमती मीनाक्षी लेखी जी।
I rise to appraise this August House of the key foreign engagements and initiatives taken by India since monsoon session, and which ended on 8th of August 2022. During this period, India's diplomacy continued apace. Honorable President, Honorable Vice President and Honorable Prime Minister interacted with a number of their foreign counterparts in India and abroad. We also participated in events linked to G20, SCO and ASEAN while hosting a number of foreign dignitaries in India. This included Secretary General Antonio Guterres of the United Nations. I myself visited a number of nations, as did several our External Affairs Minister and other Ministers of State. And we have received many of our counterpart colleagues here in India. Together, these activities reflected India's growing interest, expanding footprint and more intensive partnerships. Through these efforts at multiple levels, we were able to advance our national objectives in a world that is increasingly beset with uncertainties, disruptions and rivalries. Honorable President met Her Majesty Queen Maxima of Netherlands, who visited India from 29 to 31st August 2022 in her capacity as United Nations Secretary General Special Advocate. Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, also called on Honorable President during her state visit to India, Honorable President's first overseas visit was to United Kingdom to attend the funeral of late Queen Elizabeth II. Honorable Vice President represented India at the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit at Cambodia, which elevated the India-ASEAN relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. He also attended 17th East Asia Summit, which is an important forum to promote free, open, inclusive and rules-based Indo-Pacific. Apart from bilateral engagements in Phnom Penh, he visited UNESCO World Heritage Temples at Thap from Angkor Wat, where conservation and restoration work has taken place with India's support. Furthermore, on the invitation of His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Amir of Qatar, Honorable Vice President attended the opening ceremony of FIFA World Cup 2022. This reflected India's long-standing friendship and relationship with Qatar, which is home to over 8.5 lakh Indian nationals. Honorable Prime Minister participated at Samarkand Summit of Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Head of States, where India assumed the chairmanship of SCO. As chair of SCO, India's priorities are to advance the theme of secure, articulated by Prime Minister initially at the SCO Summit in Guangdong in 2018. Secure stands for security, economic cooperation, connectivity, unity, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity and environment. At Samarkand, Prime Minister voiced global sentiment when he declared that this was not an era of war. His statement was in the context of the Ukraine conflict, where our advocacy of dialogue and diplomacy has been consistent and persistent. It has a larger resonance as well. We have also extended support on specific concerns such as supply of food grains and fertilizers. As indeed on security of nuclear installations, our position has been broadly appreciated by the international community and finds reflection in G20 Bali Declaration. I'm very happy to inform the House that Kashi has been designated as the first SCO cultural and tourist capital for 22-23. This would facilitate showcasing of our age-old knowledge, inheritance, and our rich social and cultural heritage. The Prime Minister also attended the state funeral of late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan, who was a particular friend of India. In his meeting with his counterpart, PM Fumio Kishida, Prime Minister noted that invaluable contributions made by Shinzo Abe to strengthening India-Japan relations, as well as conceptualizing the vision of a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Both PMs renewed their commitment towards enhancing India-Japan strategic and global partnership and to work towards promoting regional and international cooperation. The Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, paid an official visit to India from 18th to 20th October and joined Prime Minister in Kevadia to jointly launch the Lifestyle for Environment initiative. Heads of state and governments from France, UK, Estonia, Georgia, Maldives, Nepal, Madagascar, Mauritius, Argentina and Guyana contributed with their messages of support for the LIFE initiative. Allow me to turn now to the subject of G20. As the House is aware, the Prime Minister attended the Bali G20 summit recently, and we therefore thereafter assumed its presidency. G20 is the premier forum for global economic cooperation, representing around 85% of the global GDP, over 75% of the world trade, and about 2/3 of the world population. Prime Minister had noted that India's presidency of the G20 during the year of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is a matter of pride for every Indian. The G20 meetings have already commenced in India, and our endeavor is to organize about 200 of these meetings in 32 different sectors in multiple locations across India. The G20 summit to be held next year would be one of the highest profile international gatherings to be hosted by India. During the G20 Bali summit held under Indonesia's presidency, India extended fullest support to ensure its success. Our contribution to finding a common ground among members in a polarized environment was widely appreciated. Prime Minister also held discussions with counterpart leaders on key issues of global concern. They focused mainly on reviving global growth, ensuring food and energy security, promoting technology, preserving environment, and addressing public health and digital transformation. As is customary, many of these opportunities also provided an occasion to take stock of our bilateral relationships. Since we were assuming the responsibility, this was also the time to seek the support and cooperation of all G20 members for the success of India's presidency. Honourable members are aware that the G20 is taking place in the largest context of geological crisis, food and energy insecurity, slow progress of sustainable development goals, mounting debt burden, and challenges to climate action and climate justice. Our endeavour is to build consensus within the G20, champion causes, especially of the global south, and shape the setting up of the agenda. This will also be an occasion for us to highlight the 3 Ds of India: development, democracy, and diversity. In our global engagements, we have discerned strong interest in India's digital delivery, public health response, green growth and development, as well as the empowerment of all sections of society. There is also an enhanced interest in our democratic traditions, which go way back in our pluralistic and consultative culture. We envisage the G20 presidency as an occasion to showcase India to the world. This will be done through cultural activities, regional festivals, technology programs, sustainability initiatives, millets promotion, one district, one product, community engagement, and civil society activities. Our presidency will witness a Jan Bhagidari, where all of India would not only participate but celebrate this occasion. As the House is aware, government has briefed leaders of political parties in this regard. We see this as a truly national endeavour and seek the cooperation of everybody to make it a success. I would also like to highlight that India will provide stronger voice to the issues of interest to the global south. This is very much part of our DNA. It was in evidence most recently during the vaccine Maitri. Our emphasis will be on sharing the India story, caring of all, and taking collective action. It will focus on emphasizing our achievements and priorities such as digital India, clean energy, sustainable lifestyles, women-led development, and multilateral reforms. Prime Minister's initiative on lifestyle for environment movement, and India's millet initiative, which has resulted in UN declaration of the year 2023 as the International Year of Millets, would also be prominent in India's approach towards addressing these sustainable development goals. Today, we are building stronger bridges with both developing countries and advanced economies. Apart from our G20 presidency, we are members of a growing number of groups and mechanisms. Some of them are relatively established, like the BRICS and Commonwealth. Others have been more recent, like the Quad and SCO. And still others are emerging, like the 12 IUT and Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. We are also increasingly engaging the world in group formats, reflecting the growing interest on their part in cooperating with India. This could be with the ASEAN, Africa or Pacific Islands, or indeed the Nordic nations, CARICOM, SELEC or Central Asia. Our growing collaboration with the European Union is of particular importance. I would also like to share with the House that the ministers of MEA have been equally active during this period. EM has hosted foreign ministers of Maldives, France, Singapore, Botswana, United Kingdom, Ghana, Gabon, Belarus, Syria, UAE and Germany in this period. I would also like to highlight the India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable and the collective interaction with 12 African ministers dealing with education and skills that took place in New Delhi. It would give the honourable members a sense of the breadth of our engagement and the growing global interest in India. This was also in evidence during the outgoing visits of the EM to Thailand, Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, UAE, Japan and Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, USA, Australia, New Zealand, Egypt and Russia. It was our privilege to represent India at the UN General Assembly high-level segment this year. It took the occasion to engage with G4, the L69, Quad, IBSA, BRICS, SELEC and CARICOM and hold multiple trilaterals and bilaterals. Our ministers of states have been equally vigorous in promoting the interest of India abroad. Shri Mulidaran went to Brazil, Senegal, USA, Oman, Djibouti, Kenya, Eritrea and Nigeria. I represented India at SICA Summit at Kazakhstan and visited Georgia, Norway, Iceland and Malta. Dr. Rajkumar Ranjan Singh was our representative at IRA Ministerial and visited Indonesia. The House should also be aware that as chair of the Counter-Terrorism CTC of UNSC, India hosted its special meeting in October. All the 15 members participated and paid homage to victims of 26/11 Mumbai terrorist attack at Memorial Wall in Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. This was the first time that the UNSC held a meeting in India. Their Delhi declaration emphasized the need to display zero tolerance towards terrorism and combat it in all its forms and manifestations. I'm happy to inform the House that after a gap created by COVID, India will be hosting 17th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas at Indore from 8th to 10th January 2023. This year's theme acknowledges the contributions of Indian diaspora as diaspora reliable partners for India's progress in Amrit Kal. The 32 million Indian diaspora is a great source of support for our country. India's 4C commitment of care, connect, celebrate and contribute would be on display during the celebrations. His Excellency President Mohammad Irfan Ali Goyana of Guyana will be the chief guest at Pravasi Bharatiya Divas 2023. Where Republic Day 2023 is concerned, we have invited His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt as the chief guest. He has graciously accepted the invitation. Honorable members would also be glad to know that 12th World Hindi Conference will be held jointly between India and Fiji from 15th to 17th February 2023 at Fiji. This will be the first occasion of hosting this event in Pacific region. Foreign policy today is no longer just an excuse of a ministry or just an exercise of a ministry or even that of the government. It has a direct impact on the daily lives of all Indians. This may be in ensuring that our products have market access or that our talent gets into the global workplace, but it is equally an effort to ensure that technology, best practices and capital flow into India. Our endeavour in a difficult global situation is that the welfare of Indian people is ensured. However challenging the circumstances may be. This may be in exceptional situations like Operation Ganga in Ukraine or the ability to access key necessities like energy and fertilizers on affordable terms, or indeed in concluding migration and mobility partnerships as we have just done with Germany. Indian foreign policy is there to serve the Indian people. We will do whatever it takes to discharge that responsibility. It could be in ensuring international support for our policies or in acceptance of our interests and objectives. These may be difficult times, but it is also an occasion to display our leadership and make a strong contribution to global peace, stability, growth and security. Honourable members know this well and understandably approach the ministry with their particular concerns and issues. It has been our earnest effort to respond as effectively and sincerely to their communications. We are extremely conscious that foreign policy must respond to the requirements and demands of our society. We demonstrate that as much through the activities of our embassies abroad as we do at home through improved passport and immigration services. Every confidence that this august House does appreciate both our promotion of national interest abroad as well as our responsiveness to the daily requirements of our people. I conclude with the expectation that the House will continue to extend its fullest support to our efforts and encourage our success in G20 presidency. Thank you, Chairman, sir.
No. Item number 15. समुद्री जल दस्युता रोधी विधेयक 2019 माननीय मंत्री जी. No queries. You no. Please sit down. No. Now honorable. चलिए. Item number 15 now. Item number 15. Please. No. Nothing. Please. चलिए. Please sit down. Please.
Honorable Speaker, sir.
नोटिस दीजिए उसका. ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर के वक्तव्य पर कोई कमेंट नहीं होता. प्लीज अदिल साहब बैठ जाइए. बैठिए प्रेम साहब बैठिए. आप नोटिस दीजिए, चर्चा हो उसके ऊपर. प्लीज आप 193 में कर लो. नो बैठिए अदिल साहब बैठिए. बैठ जाइए प्लीज. मिस्टर
Honorable Speaker, sir, I am rising to move in this August House official amendments to the Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill 2019. The bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha on 9 December 2019 and Honorable Speaker, sir, had referred it to the Standing Committee on External Affairs 2019-2020 for examination and report. I thank the committee for examining the bill in detail and making very useful recommendations and observations. To suitably incorporate these recommendations, the Ministry of External Affairs held several rounds of ministerial consultations with concerned ministries and departments. The amendments have been drafted and finalized in consultation with and concurrence of the Ministry of Law and Justice. Sir, I am happy to note that out of the 18 recommendations of the committee, 14 have been incorporated suitably. 3 recommendations, number 1, 3 and 18, were in the nature of observations which have been noted. 1 recommendation, number 2, is to define clear-cut roles of various departments to be reflected in the rules for the effective coordination mechanism. This recommendation also calls for SOPs for deportation and extradition of pirates by the Ministry of Home Affairs so that these could be implemented early, and that has been noted and will be addressed suitably. So regarding the issues raised by the committee, the provision of trial in absentia has been dropped. Keeping in mind the observations of the committee regarding the Supreme Court of India's ruling on awarding mandatory death punishment, the provision regarding death punishment has been amended in the bill to also include imprisonment for life. Honorable Speaker, sir, India does not have a specific law or legal provision in the IPC or the CRPC on piracy. This bill, along with the amendments, would provide an effective legal instrument to combat piracy, not only in our territorial waters, but in the EEZ, but also on the high seas. India's security and economic well-being is inextricably linked to the sea, and maritime security is a prerequisite, with more than 90% of our trade with the world taking place through sea routes and more than 80% of our hydrocarbon requirements being seaborne. The security of our sea lanes of communication is critical to our national well-being. India is also one of the largest providers of seafarers in the world. We are a signatory to the UNCLOS 1982, which was ratified in 1995. The passing of this bill fulfills the expectation of this convention for cooperation in repression of piracies in the high seas. It may be noted that the Honorable Prime Minister had chaired a UN Security Council session in 2021 focused exclusively on maritime security. He had then outlined 5 principles for such cooperation. As such, the passing of the bill today is a logical follow-up of our maritime initiative and will also enhance our maritime security, including those of our trade routes and the welfare of our seafarers in international waters. It therefore merits the consideration and approval of this House. Thank you. So, sir, I rise to move that the bill anti-maritime piracy bill 2019 with amendments be passed.
Into consideration. Introduction. No. Taken into consideration. Introduction हो चुका है. Passing. हाँ ठीक है. Consideration के लिए.
Sir, be
considered and passing.
Considered and passed.
Okay, Minister. Shri Manish Tiwari ji.
Very good presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, sir. I rise to speak on the Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill 2019. If I understand correctly, the official amendments which are sought to be moved by the government, you plan to amend the title of the bill to perhaps read Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill 2019, which of course would make it sound better. As the Minister was explaining, Mr. Chairperson, that the bill was introduced in this House on the 9th of December 2019, was referred to the Standing Committee on 23rd December 2019. The Standing Committee reported back on the 11th of February 2021, and official amendments were proposed by the government on the 22nd of July 2022. This bill, Mr. Chairperson, provides us an opportunity not only to discuss the legal architecture around, or the need for a legal architecture around piracy, but more importantly also India's interests, India's strategic interests in the Northern Arabian Sea and the Western Indian Ocean, where a majority of India's trade passes through. It would be a trite to say that ungoverned spaces actually create the conditions for pirates to operate. And unfortunately, since 2008-2009, Somalia and Yemen have been in a rather disturbed state of affairs, and so therefore the Gulf of Aden, the North Arabian Sea, the coast of Somalia and Yemen have been piracy prone now for almost a decade and a half or not more. And for India, as the Minister was correctly pointing out, that the sea lanes of commerce, especially the ones which transit through these seas and also the ones which then transit from the Hormuz to the Malacca, really constitute the lifeblood of our global trade. And it was in the year 2009 that when the problem of piracy was really at its zenith, that a combined task force was set up, Task Force 151, 152 and 153. They were established and they were given a mission mandate in order to combat the problem of piracy. 34 nations, 6 countries got together to patrol almost 8.3 million square kilometers of international waters. And I must say that this mission has been successful in mitigating the impact of piracy to a great extent. India, of course, at that point in time, chose not to associate itself with the Task Force 151, 152, 153, which was operating out of the combined maritime headquarters in Bahrain, primarily because of the presence of Pakistan on these task forces. But I'm given to understand, I would be very interested to know from the Honourable Minister that I believe India has changed its mind and now we have decided to associate ourselves with these task forces. So it would be interesting to really understand from the Minister as to why this change of heart and change of mind has really come about. However, Mr. Chairperson, sir, something which is of extreme significance to our national security is the growing Chinese presence in these waters. China has operationalized its port in Djibouti. In fact, a recent report which was given by the Department of Defense to the US Congress on China's military power very, very specifically flagged the question of China's naval presence, and especially that the base in Djibouti would be able to host Chinese aircraft carriers and other Chinese PLA Navy assets in this particular region in a rather elevated or enhanced manner. Therefore, under those circumstances, more than piracy, it is actually the Chinese naval presence in the Northern Arabian Sea and the Western Indian Ocean which is going to become our foremost challenge. And therefore, I would like to ask, and interestingly, the Honorable Defence Minister is also here, and I had raised this in the Consultative Committee when we met in Mumbai just a week before, that perhaps India needs to really reconsider its forward-basing policy also, because you cannot have a secure Northern Arabian Sea and a Western Indian Ocean if you do not have bases to be able to forward deploy. And China has very, very successfully leveraged its debt diplomacy in order to expand its basing presence around the rim of Africa. So they are exploring bases in Madagascar in addition to various other countries. And I would like to ask the Honourable Minister, India had been in talks with Mauritius. I think we were doing something on the Agliga Islands. We were also doing something with Seychelles on the Assumption Islands. So therefore, it would be interesting if the Minister could throw light as to what really would, in the light of the changed circumstances, the geopolitical circumstances, not only in the Northern Arabian Sea and the Western Indian Ocean, but globally also, is India willing to really reconsider its policy of having bases abroad? And under those circumstances, if it's willing to reconsider that policy, then how really is the situation with regard to what we had in the works, Mauritius and Seychelles. Coming to the specific aspects of this bill, between 2016 and 2020, given that there have been 900 incidents of piracy globally, and India has about 10%, 10% जो लोग हैं जो इस मर्चेंट एक्टिविटी में भाग लेते हैं, वो भारतीय मूल के हैं, क्रूमैन और अफसर, और पिछले 5-7 वर्ष में 500 से ज्यादा भारतीयों को पायरेट्स द्वारा बंदी बनाया गया है। और इस संदर्भ में ये जो कानून सरकार लेके आई है, इसकी जरूरत तो थी और है, पर इसके कुछ अंश हैं जिसके ऊपर मैं सरकार का ध्यान आकर्षित करना चाहता हूं। अगर मैंने माननीय मंत्री जी को सही सुना तो उन्होंने ये कहा कि जो स्थायी समिति ने सिफारिशें की थी, कुछ अंशों के ऊपर उनको उन्होंने संज्ञान में लेकर उसमें तब्दीली करने की कोशिश की है। But I would still like to point out certain ambiguities which continue to exist in the law and which need to be further refined, which need to be fleshed out or sharpened, because they are going to become an impediment with regard to international cooperation, which is the sine qua non of our entire anti-piracy effort. Now, if you were to, Mr. Chairperson, sir, direct your attention specifically to Clause 3, which says that whosoever commits any act of piracy shall be punished with imprisonment for life or with death if such person in committing the act of piracy causes death or an attempt thereof. Now, there is an inherent contradiction and an inherent ambiguity in this clause. And let me point it out why I'm saying so. The Indian jurisprudence in the Supreme Court has been extremely conservative when it comes to handing out death penalty. And they have repeatedly reiterated and stressed that only in the rarest of rare cases, death penalty should be given. I can understand the government's intent to try and deal with piracy with a firm hand, but even Indian law does not permit a death sentence or does not contemplate a death sentence where an attempt has been made which might result in causing death. You see, under the Indian Penal Code, attempt to murder, which is section 307 of the Indian Penal Code, is not punishable by death. So therefore, is the government trying to create new jurisprudence through this law, which then can be extrapolated to other criminal laws, whereby you are proposing that even the offense of attempting to commit murder and the statistics on people getting acquitted insofar as section 307 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned is very, very high. I would seriously urge you that I think either it is a drafting error or it is an inadvertent slip, but this needs to be corrected. I don't think a law, and even in terms of soliciting international cooperation on the question of piracy, if you have a law which punishes an attempt which has been made in the course of a piracy on somebody's life as punishable with death, that is not going to really bring the kind of cooperation which you would perhaps look for while operationalizing this law. Similarly, if I were to come to clause 4 in the bill, now may I, Mr. Chairperson, sir, just read it out. Whosoever attempts to commit the offense of piracy or aids or abets or counsels or procures for the commission of such an offense shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 14 years and shall also be liable to fine. Now, Mr. Chairperson, you are a lawyer yourself. We have another eminent lawyer sitting right there who's the Minister of State for External Affairs. I can understand the word aid, I can understand the word abets, but counsels, how can you counsel an act of piracy? I have not been able to wrap my head around the word counsel. That, well, if somebody, aids in an act of piracy, he abets an act of piracy, he procures equipment which then is used in operationalizing that act of piracy, whether it is a boat or it is weapons, it is ammunition, etc. It's understandable, but counsels an act of piracy, I think there needs to be an explanation from the government as to, the minister wants to say something.
So I just want to clarify, possibly the member is reading from the earlier version of the bill, because in the official amendment which we have moved, the word counsel is replaced by conspired. So I just want to point it out. I think there is possibly some misunderstanding here.
I think possibly the revised version with the amendments has not been circulated, because when our office last checked, this was the only version of the bill, Mr. Chairperson, which was at least available to the members. You may have moved the amendment separately.
No. So far not moved, and it has not been circulated.
Yes.
Not to our knowledge. How we are able to discuss?
Honourable Minister, please check whether it has been circulated or not.
No. Where? We do.
No. And passing in the last session, and at that time it could not reach, and it was circulated. All the official amendments have been circulated to at least to all the. If I have received it, then you must ask.
Well, Mr. Chairperson, then I think I think with great respect to Mr. P.P. Chowdhury, there seems to be some special treatment for the treasury benches. But insofar as the opposition benches are concerned, but insofar as the opposition benches are concerned, when I checked today in the morning, the official amendments were at least not available to us.
Honorable Speaker, sir, my understanding is it was circulated on the 6th of December.
However, it is corrected now. Wait. Honorable Minister, the only thing is, now Minister is... No. Brave, 1 minute. Your point is, notwithstanding the correction made in this House, whether the due process has been taken or not. That is the question.
Yes, he is the chairman of the standing committee. Unfortunately, misleading the House. All the notices of amendments which were given during the last session will lapse on the day in which the House is withdrawn. So that amendments won't give any effect. The amendments have to be given in this session after issuance of the summons by the President of India.
Please, Minister.
That is our point.
On 6th of December.
No. Minister is categorical that it has been circulated on 6th itself. You want to reiterate it? Please.
Chairman, sir, the official amendments were circulated on 6th of December. So it is, what had happened was, I don't
The portal, how the members who are coming on 6th or 7th, the bill is being taken for discussion. How we are able to go through the amendments and have a homework on these issues? It's very unfortunate. At least circulate among the members. At least the amendments may be circulated among the members, the hard copy.
Okay, but point is noted. We will direct the Minister.
No, Mr. Chairperson, I think... No, Mr.
I think that we come to end. That it has been circulated. The time is the crux. Time is the crux. Such a delay should not be happening in future, please.
No, Mr. Chairperson,
please,
I don't think...
We can continue the debate.
No, Mr. Chairperson, I don't think the delay is the crux. What Mr. Premachandran was trying to say, and I would like to reiterate. The fact is that if amendments are circulated on 6th of December 2022, and the discussion is taking place on the 7th of December 2022, it is not a pro forma circulation which is important, that we've put it on the portal and we've done our job. I think it is also a question of propriety. If you are discussing a bill on the very next day, you should at least circulate the official amendments to the members, because not everybody goes on the portal every day to check as to what government has put on the portal and what has not been put on the portal. So therefore, going back to what I was saying, so if the government or if the minister has clarified that the word councils has been replaced by the word conspire, then, well, that makes it a full provision. Let me come to my next point, Mr. Chairperson. Now, Clause 9 and the proviso to it says that provided where such offence is committed on board a foreign flag ship, such court, which is a designated court, shall not have the jurisdiction to try such an offence unless the law enforcement agency or the public authority of the port or place where the ship is located has been requested to intervene by the concerned state whose flag the ship is entitled to fly, or by the owner of the ship or his master or any other person on board the ship. Now, this has very profound implications. For example, Mr. Chairperson, if there is a ship on high seas on which an attempt of piracy has been made, and there are Indian crewmen or Indian officers on board that ship, and there are unfortunate casualties, and therefore it is the Indian Coast Guard or the Indian Navy which responds to it and takes them into custody, is the government trying to say just because the ship is flying a foreign flag, irrespective of the fact that Indian nationals may have been involved in or may have been hurt in the process, the government or the designated court will not have the authority to try that particular offence. I think there is a clarity required, because if there are Indian nationals and we are actually enacting a law or putting in place a legal architecture with regard to piracy, so therefore it should extend to every ship which possibly has Indian crewmen or Indian officers on board. My final point, Mr. Chairperson, and I think which is important, is on the question of presumption. This law shifts the burden of proof and actually turns the principle of jurisprudence on its head, that you are innocent until proven guilty. Now, this is not the only law which does it. Even the Prevention of Corruption Act has that, or shifts the burden of proof. However, my concern is that when you are talking about piracy, you are also implicitly talking about cooperation with other countries. Now, if you have a law where the presumption of guilt or the burden of proof has actually been shifted to the accused, and the accused has to be extradited from a third country, that third country is not going to extradite an accused who is already proven to be guilty till the time he doesn't prove himself to be innocent. This is actually going to become detrimental to your larger international cooperation in order to combat piracy, rather than being an enabler. I would request the Minister to really reconsider this particular clause in the light of its practical implications when it comes to implementing it. Finally, Mr. Chairperson, I would just like to conclude by saying that this particular bill, when you look at it in its entirety, is a bill which India requires. But yes, there are certain specific issues which I have flagged, and there are a couple of more, since we are running out of time, which require the reconsideration of the government, because, as I earlier said, they are going to become a problem when the operationalization of this bill takes place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shri P.B. Chaudhary.
Thank you very much, sir. I rise to support the Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill. This bill was in fact needed much before, because the United Nations Convention on Law of Sea, that was Convention of 1982, and thereafter India ratified in 1995. So almost 166 countries are member states. So I would like to, before I start, I would like to refer the speech of Honorable Prime Minister, remarks at the United Nations Security Council high-level open debate on enhancing maritime security, a case for international cooperation. The ocean quote, "The ocean is our joint heritage. Our sea routes are the lifeline of international trade. And the biggest thing is that these oceans are very important for the future of our planet. But today, our shared maritime heritage is facing many challenges. Sea routes are being misused for piracy and terrorism. There are maritime disputes between many countries, and climate change and natural disasters are also maritime domain-related issues. In this broad context, we must make a framework of mutual understanding and cooperation for the preservation and use of our common maritime heritage. No country can make such a framework alone. It can only be realized through a common effort. It is with this thought that we have brought this important issue before the Security Council. I am confident that today's high-level discussion will guide the world on the issue of maritime security." Unquote. So, keeping in view these aspects, I extend my thanks to Honourable Minister that this is a very important legislation, because if we see the Indian Ocean region, almost 50% of the global sea trade and more than 1 lakh of the ships carried through this Indian Ocean region. And we are witnessing, and this from the long time, the robbery or hijacking for payment of ransom, and not only one particular part of the globe. In the sea, the Gulf of Guinea, Malacca, Red Somalia waters, all there are shipping routes. And after 2008, the Gulf of Aden and Seychelles and Mauritius are also subjected to many pirates. And this 2009 to 2019, almost 73 piracy and robbery were committed. Now, because we see that there is no separate legislation in our country, because the jurisdiction problem, and there are so many problems, this is the reason that because in the IPC and CRPC, the piracy has not been treated as a crime. And the questions also, because one of the case arose in this jurisdiction of the Indian courts, the Alondra Rainbow case of 1999, where the trial court prosecution was successful, but the High Court struck down and overruled on the jurisdictional ground, on the ground that the piracy is not a crime under the Indian Penal Code, and Indian courts are not having any jurisdiction with respect to exercise the jurisdiction with respect to any offense committed on the high sea. So this is the reason. So now question is, why this bill? What is the reason why government is bringing this bill? Because to arrest, investigate, and prosecute and provide the punishment, inflict the punishment, there is no provision in Indian Penal Code, and there is no procedure in the Criminal Procedure Code. And this is the reason. And moreover, the word piracy has not been defined under the Indian Penal Code, therefore it has not been treated as punishment. The Indian courts are not having any jurisdiction with respect to the piracy committed on the high sea. And there is a jurisdiction problem. And apart from this, it is also a United Nations obligation, because the United Nations Convention on Law of Sea was adopted in 1982 and India ratified in 1995. Since there is no law in this area, and this field is unoccupied, and for repression of the piracy, this law is needed. So if we go by chronological order, so earlier the bill was introduced before this House in 2012. It was sent to the Standing Committee. Standing Committee reported, it gave its recommendation, and again it was redrafted in 2018, redrafted after consulting this Law Ministry, Shipping, Ministry of Home, Ministry of Defense, Navy, Coast Guard, and legislation has also taken into consideration the law which is prevalent, the law made by the Australia, New Zealand and Sri Lanka. And we have also taken the guidance from the international this maritime organization. So if we see the objective of the bill overall, so basically it is the foremost objective is repression of the piracy on the high sea, and empowering the competent authority for arrest, investigate, prosecute, and inflict the penalty on the guilty. And it is also obligation of the United Convention on the Law of the Sea. And the piracy was not criminalized earlier. Now criminalizing the piracy is also one of the objectives of this bill. And apart from this international support anti-piracy operation by the Indian Navy, it will also help them. So apart this applicability of the bill. So if we, from the coastline, the territorial water, we have exclusive jurisdiction, we can deal with under the Indian Penal Code and CRPC. But beyond the territorial water, in exclusive economic zone, we can utilize this for the purpose of research and other purposes. But we don't have any jurisdiction, and we can't invoke the provision of the Indian Penal Code and CRPC for prosecution and punishment. So that's why this law is needed, and so far as the territorial jurisdiction, it goes up to 12 nautical miles, that is equivalent to 22 kilometers, and exclusive economic zone, that is 200 nautical miles, that is equivalent to 370 kilometers. So in 370 kilometers, we were not having jurisdiction. That has also been treated in the high sea. So we are having the sovereignty, so far the territorial water is concerned. we don't have any sovereignty, and we don't have any jurisdiction with respect to the exclusive economic zone and high sea. And this, if we see the bill, the definition of the piracy is as defined under the United Nations Convention on Law of Sea, adopted in 1982. There are 4 mandatory conditions. If we bifurcate the whole definition in 4 parts, then these are the 4 mandatory conditions for this, whether a particular act is this crime or not. First, this crime should be committed for private ends, number 1, by any person or by crew or any passenger of a private ship. Number 3, the place can only be the high sea. Number 4, against another ship or any person or property on board such ship. Now question arises, if the crime is committed by the foreign ship, by the government ship, that is this non-commercial, and this warship, then it is not included. So if it is a commercial ship, it may be a government ship. I think, to my mind, then this, because this is not clear on this issue, then on the basis of interpretation we can say, even if it is a government ship, it is involved in commercial operation and piracy is committed, then it is also comes under the jurisdiction. So the punishment of piracy, Mr. Manish Tiwari was referring about the committing of the piracy under this clause 3. So far the clause 3 is concerned, clause 3, whoever commit any act of piracy shall be punished with imprisonment, because it has been, official amendment is there, imprisonment for life or with fine or with both. And who causes the death or attempt, then with death or with life imprisonment. So I think this has been, official amendment is on the reason that the mandatory death penalty can't be inflicted. In one of the cases, the Supreme Court has taken the view that the mandatory death penalty is unconstitutional, and reason being, it is violative of Article 14 and 21 of the Constitution of India, that no person shall be deprived of life and liberty except in accordance with law. But law must be reasonable. So the no discretionary power has been given to the court to inflict that penalty, whether that penalty in the given facts and circumstances is needed or not. Therefore, the discretionary power can't be taken away from the court. So in state jacket formula, if such type of crime is committed, then the court must be given discretion, and this is the reason that I think it is a welcome move by this government, that they have this official amendment is there, that discretion has been given to the courts. So in fact, earlier the court has also struck down this section 303 of the IPC, where a convict who is in the prison, serving the prison, if he commit a murder, then that person committed death, then that person is, the penalty is only the death sentence. So that provision has been struck down by the court, that the discretion should be, and some questioning should be there. In the given facts and circumstances, it is for the court to decide whether the death penalty is needed or not. So that is the reason. And apart from this, under the Arms Act, usage of prohibited arms resulting in death, then that provision is also struck down. So, and on the basis of this, some of the cases are also pending before the Supreme Court with respect to the mandatory death penalty on the Act of the SC/ST Act of 1989 and Anti-Hijacking Act of 2016. These cases are pending on this, and the government has this amended, official amendment is there. So the word death penalty has been removed and word or is used, and that discretion has been endowed on the court. Now, if we go by the country-wise, some of the country like Singapore, Thailand and Malaysia, they have made the provision for mandatory death penalty if death is caused during the piracy. And in America, the punishment is for 20 years. And some of the more countries that no death penalty for the piracy is Kenya, Australia, Italy and Sri Lanka. My suggestion to this Honorable Minister about this, some of the provision, because I think so far as clause 3 is concerned, whoever commit any act of piracy, I think thereafter official amendment may be brought on it. Act of piracy. This is reference to the act of piracy, but it is not with reference to aids or abet or conspires or procures, because the action and conspiracy both should be added, but in clause 3 only the commission is added, not this conspirator. So this is missing, I think. And second part is second suggestion about it. And whereas in clause 4, if we read clause 3 and clause 4, then in clause 4, if we read clause 4, sir, then whoever attempt to commit the offense of piracy or word, this rightly used, word or aids or abets or counsel, instead of counsel it is conspire, or procures. These words should also be there in clause 3 immediately after the any act of piracy. Commit any act of piracy or, because this clause 3 and clause 4, they must have the similarity, because in clause 4 the proper words are used, but in clause 3 these words of the aids, abets or conspiracy. The conspiracy part is missing in clause 3, which should be there. And this for attempt, this under clause 4, punishment for attempt to commit any piracy or aids or abet, conspire, this is because it can extend to 10 years. I am coming on the punishment. It is extendable up to 10 years or fine or both. But I fear that if any attempt or the commission offense is there, then the use of the word or, it gives too much discretion to the court, that if they can also impose only the fine instead of inflicting the penalty. I think too much discretion has been given to the court that even the fine can be imposed for this purpose. And again in clause 5, punishment or for organizing, directing others to participate, 14 years or with fine or both. This I am reading clause 5, sir. Whoever participate or organize or direct other person to participate in any act of piracy shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to, now it has been reduced to 10 years, and shall also be instead of and, now it has been substituted by the word or, shall also be liable to be fined. So the court can also impose the fine in all cases wherever the word or is used. So we can use the word immediately after the 10 years punishment and word and, fine or both. And finally, this I would also like to refer, arrest of person and seizure of ship, this clause 7, sir. Clause 7 says, this new clause has been added. The clause 7 says, the authorized personnel may either generally or on suspicion that a ship is engaged in piracy on the high sea, board such ship and arrest the person or seize the pirate ship and property on board. I am referring to the official amendment. And in official amendment, the word generally, either generally or on suspicion, because in the main act, the word suspicion we have not treated as a punishment. So if it is a suspicion is not a punishment under the word, when we define the word piracy, then we can't treat it as a punishment. So that's why it can also create a problem. And here they arrest the person or they seize the pirate ship. So we are giving the power to the authority. Either he can arrest the ship or seize the private ship. So if he only sees the private ship and he is not arresting the person, so this power is given, we are empowering the authority, either arrest the ship or seize the vessel, seize the private ship. So arresting the person is not mandatory. He can only seize the private ship and property on the board and finish his job. because he can say very well that I am acting in accordance with the provision of the law. And again, the word suspicion is not there. It has not been treated as punishment. So once we are not treating it as a punishment under the definition of the piracy, then it may create some problem. And about the authorized persons, there is no problem. And again, about the presumption, because Mr. Manish Tiwari ji has referred about the presumption. In some of the law, presumption, on the basis of the presumption, person can be prosecuted. But no doubt it depends upon country to country. But once the offense is extraditable, then it can be on the basis of the reciprocity. We can bring the accused here and prosecute. But the presumption of committing the crime, unless contrary is proved, we have under the bill, we have given the sufficient safeguards. The safeguard is, but because these are the mandatory safeguards, that the recovery of arms and ammunition. Once we recover the arms and ammunition, then presumption can be drawn. In absence of arms and ammunition, no presumption can be drawn. But so therefore, the sufficient safeguards have been provided under the bill, that once the arms and ammunition have been recovered, or those are used or intended to be used, the evidence of force and threat is there, the evidence of intended threat is there. So in the bill, the sufficient safeguard have been taken with respect to the presumption. No doubt the presumption is that presumption of the guilt. So some of the enactment we have in this Prevention of Corruption Act like that is a valid enactment. So in this, when we are dealing with high C, so in case we don't draw the presumption, then it is very difficult to prosecute that person. Very difficult to collect the evidence. But in the bill, the mandatory conditions have been provided and sufficient safeguard have been given and very fine balance have been maintained, that unless there is no recovery. Simply on the basis of this provision, we can't say that only the presumption is there. But for the presumption, to draw the presumption, then the recovery of the arms and ammunition should be there. And those should be either used or intended to be used or force or there is a threat, then only the presumption can be drawn. So therefore, there are sufficient safeguards in the bill. And on the point of the extraditable crime, because it is no doubt and deemed to be any other state on the reciprocity, if there is a reciprocity with the other nations, then we can extradite without any problem. But keeping in view, because every state must have their own legislation. But once we enter into this agreement is there, bilateral treaty is there, then there will be no problem for extraditable the crime. Basically, we have treated this crime as an extraditable crime. So on the basis of the reciprocity, there we can bring him back. Thank you very much, sir. And I support that the bill may be passed.
Steve, Mehtab.
Yes.
Sorry.
I had requested.
For a flight.
And especially speaking after two legal luminaries, it is always a difficult part on my case, because I have, though I am been elected to frame law, I have not studied law, nor any degree I have got from the law colleges or university. And second point which I would like to mention after hearing two colleagues of mine, piracy has not been there in the IPC. You yourself know, sir. The Indian Penal Code is just another version of Irish Penal Code. CRPC, of course, was framed in 1948, then subsequently number of amendments on. The greatest pirate of this world were Britishers. Why would they frame a law to apprehend pirates? And that is the basic reason, and we have woken up after such a long time that we need to have a piracy law, and Prime Minister raised it in the United Nations. So coming to this bill, I'm really astonished by my predecessor, P.P. Chaudhary, my friend. Perhaps he was also heading that standing committee which went through
this bill, and now his number of amendments have been accepted by the government, and still certain amendments have not been. But anyway, he must have gone through in detail, unlike Manish Tiwari, who is very much aware about it. There are certain apprehensions and also certain suggestions which I would like to make in a very brief manner. I would say Indian Penal Code provisions pertaining to armed robbery have been involved in the past to prosecute pirates apprehended by the Navy and the Coast Guard. But in the absence of a specific law on the offense of maritime piracy in India, problems were being faced to ensure effective prosecutions of pirates. This is the basic reason for which this law has been framed. I would say under this bill, if a person while committing an act of piracy causes or attempts to cause death, he will be punished with death or imprisonment. That amendment has come. Supreme Court has in Dalbir Singh versus State of Punjab and Mithu versus State of Punjab in 1983, this was in 2006, earlier one, ruled that mandatory death penalty for an offense violates Article 14 and 21 of the Constitution. The court has held that a provision that imposes a mandatory death penalty is arbitrary and unfair. The Supreme Court has in Vachan Singh versus State of Punjab also narrowed the application of death penalty to the rarest of rare.
He is having only 3 minutes, but however, just warning.
Sudden love for you. Sir, this bill defines piracy, and here certain actions may fall on different offences and have differing penalties. And there are 3 or 4 in that line. And I would just mention it briefly. Any illegal act of violence, detention or destructions committed against a ship, aircraft, person or property, inciting or intentionally facilitating such illegal acts, or voluntarily participating in the operation of a pirate ship, any person who commits an act of piracy will be punished with imprisonment for life, death penalty, if the act of piracy causes or attempts to cause death. However, another clause in the bill provides for imprisonment of up to 14 years, along with a fine, if a person aids, assists, participates, organizes, or directs another person to participate in an act of piracy. Offences in both the clauses seem to be similar. It is unclear which penalties will apply under which circumstances. For instance, person A directs person B to damage a ship on the high seas. There could be 2 ways in which person A is charged: committing an act of piracy by inciting such act and thus be charged with life imprisonment or death, or directing another person to participate in an act of piracy and punished with imprisonment of up to 14 years along with a fine. Sir, the next point which I would like to mention is the geographical applicability of the bill. And the minister very rightly mentioned about exclusive economic zone. But India has limited rights in the exclusive economic zone, such as the rights to explore, exploit and manage natural resources. Currently, certain acts of piracy, such as acts of violence against ship and seizure of a ship occurring in the EEZ, are covered under the Suppression of Unlawful Acts Against Safety of Maritime Navigation and Fixed Platforms on Continental Shelf Act, that is SUA Act 2002. However, the SU Act 2002 does not cover all acts of piracy as defined under UNCLOS. For example, an act of theft that does not endanger the safety of a ship in the EEZ will not be covered under the SUA Act 2002, but this would qualify as an act of piracy under UNCLOS and this bill. Sir, I would not go into the other aspects, but on international law, UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, is the first comprehensive enforceable international environmental law covering all forms of marine pollution, land-based, atmospheric, shipborne, and originating from activities on the seabed. UNCLOS of 1982 entered into force on November 16, 1994. Although many nations have signed and notified UNCLOS, their number has not been sufficient to bring it into force. Despite the fact that UNCLOS runs 320 articles and 9 annexes, there are still important issues that require further work. For example, controversies exist over overlapping jurisdiction of territorial waters, that is 12 nautical miles, and exclusive economic zone, that is 200 nautical miles. Therefore, my suggestion is the government must review the provision of death penalty for pirates involved in killing or attempt to murder cases in the proposed piracy bill, as the extradition of the accused may be difficult, which my friend Manish just now mentioned. The law must provide for legal immunity for acts done in good faith. My previous speaker just now mentioned if arms is seized, but arms for what? Ship may be carrying arms for their own safety, so that security personnel duly authorized by the government to deal with the problem get protection. International cooperation on the issue of maritime piracy at various international platforms should also be brought. All necessary steps should be taken by the concerned ministerial authorities. Sir, the bill, of course, is a landmark move to combat the issue of piracy at sea. However, the proposed law must be reviewed based on international laws. The provision of death penalty, as I have stated earlier, and I had moved an amendment last session, but I would say must be reconsidered to ensure better acceptance of the proposed law. With these words, I conclude, sir.
Sumadi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, sir, for having given me this opportunity to speak on this anti-maritime piracy bill. At the outset, I would like to associate myself with the Honourable Member of the Parliament, Dr. Manish Tiwari, to change the nomenclature as Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill. Sir, my story starts at sea, a perilous voyage to an unknown land, a shipwreck. The wild waters soar and heave, the brave vessel is dashed all to pieces, and all the helpless souls within her drowned. Thus Shakespeare describes the natural calamities and dangers of a sea voyage. But apart from these, the pirates of the sea are the most dangerous threat, who seize, destroy any ship at high seas and sometimes even at the harbors at shore. Also, they are involved in many other illegal activities like smuggling and slave trades. So the sea piracy mafia needs to be dealt with iron fist. And so I really appreciate our government's initiative to bell the cat legally through this bill. So according to the International Maritime Bureau of the ICC, piracy attacks on ships were increased by 20% between 2019 and 2020. India is the largest stakeholder in maritime trade, having our crew and officers constitute nearby 10% of the global seafaring community. And thus it's high time to have this bill passed, and we have our Union Minister here right now for the External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who has labored much to bring this bill to see the light of the day. I appreciate wholeheartedly his efforts and hope This will bring sea changes in the Indian maritime history. Sir, the Union is bringing the law as part of the commitment made by India while signing the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, in 1982, and the UNCLOS was ratified by India in 1995. I welcome this bill, but would like to draw the attention of this august House through you to some major incidents. Sir, the introduction of this bill comes after some days after 18 Indians aboard a crude oil ship carrier were kidnapped off the coast of Nigeria. Some time ago also, the House would not have been forgotten. An incident had been reported about our fellow Keralite fishermen being killed by the authorities in an Italian naval ship. And since there was a lacuna in the legal system, much had been deliberated and spoken about, and even when we were waiting for the offenders to be punished, they were just let go, which was a very sad thing. And I'd like to bring those things, incidents, to the attention of this august House, because that's how this bill seems to be very, very important. So, to have a separate domestic legislature on piracy, as well taking care of the fellow fishermen from all the states of India is also very, very important. Yes. That's the point I would like to make here. So far, we have to rely on the Indian Penal Code relating to the offence of wartime piracy in India, and the penal codes are only applicable up to territorial waters. Also, the international naval presence in the Gulf of Aden made the pirate to have a paradigm shift to east and southwards. So, everybody's eyes are now up to the southern part. I appreciate the initiative to pass this bill after so much mulling over on discussions from 2019 onwards, as have been pointed out by my esteemed colleagues. However, during the 15th Lok Sabha, a redrafted bill was presented and it was lapsed. So why I am just pointing out the detailed efforts is, while so much effort have been taken by the Union government, showing keen interest and evident interest to safeguard Indians, our trade and other seafaring activities, sheer neglect has been shown to our Tamilian fishermen throughout. Aren't we the sons of Bharat Mata, as you proudly say? So whenever there is a Tamilian fisherman being attacked by the Sri Lankan Navy, the headlines will scream that Indian fishermen are attacked. Whereas in Gujarat, I won't budge in. Whereas Tamilian fishermen are attacked, the headlines will scream, Tamilian fishermen are attacked. I beg your pardon. But wherein Gujarati fishermen are attacked, then the headlines will say Indian fishermen are attacked. Why this stepmotherly treatment to us? Our Chief Minister, Talapati M.K. Stalin, has umpteen number of times raised this issue, and our floor leader, respected member of the parliament, Sir T.R. Balu sir, also has raised this issue in the parliament. But recently, how many incidents have been, listed? See, 600 fishermen have been killed in the recent times, and thousands of their fishing vessels seized and damaged, more than 600 in the last 30 years. But the government is not taking any stringent laws through legal actions, rather than negotiations and table conferences and diplomatic talks. Also, sir, another important thing is, I would like to bring to your kind notices regarding the Kachativu. Yes. Sir, Kachativu was ceded to Sri Lanka in violation under the 1976 agreement, but without the approval of the two houses of parliament. Diplomatic efforts are of no avail considering the fishermen and other issues. India should step into action to reclaim and bring it under our sovereignty. If necessary, the International Court of Justice may also be approached. Sir, no doubt, I welcome this wonderful, important piece of legislation whereby the union government is empowered to notify designated courts for the trials of piracy and also to increase the scope of maritime navigation beyond the territorial waters to cover economic EEZ. So I have a request here to the union minister, kindly set up one or more courts of sessions in southern parts, especially in Tamil Nadu. Yes, yes. That is our kind request. Yes. Especially in Tamil Nadu should be set up. Sir, as has been pointed out by the members of my respected colleagues here, the punishment of a death penalty is not at all advisable, and as had been rightly pointed out by the union minister here also, we hope that it would be abolished, because we have had this history of Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer, the pioneer of judicial activism, who is a strong advocacy against the capital punishment, and our CM is also, all of us are against it, and our own Mahatma Gandhi, we have him, who has said that I cannot in all conscience agree anyone being brought to gallows. Even countries like USA, Italy, who have been part of this, which have been refrained, they have refrained themselves from this capital punishment. Sir, I have a few suggestions also apart from this. The standing committee has stated the role, the one particular point, that the role of the state government has to be clearly defined. Yes. In order to emphasize and promote effective coordination mechanism. So kindly take that also into account. And again, sir, one more point. There is no mention of international cooperation for the repression of piracy in this bill, which should be addressed. And since our Prime Minister has proudly announced as the head of the G20 summit that one earth, one family, one future, I'd like to request our Honourable Union Minister through you, sir, that he has to consider our fishermen from Tamil Nadu also, because local issues are very, very important and it needs to be addressed. We are very happy. We welcome this bill, but still they have to take into account the plight of our fishermen. Hence, with all these suggestions and requests, I'd like to ask the Honourable Union Minister through you to take into consideration of the above points as well before passing the bill. Thank you very much.
Very good. Sri Redappa.
Sir, I would like to thank the Honourable Chairperson for giving me the opportunity to speak on the Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill 2019. Sir, at the outset, I would like to bring out the importance of Indian Ocean. Sir, the sea lanes in the Indian Ocean are considered among the most strategically important in the world. More than 80% of the world's seamen trade is oil transit through the Indian Ocean choke points, with 40% passing over through the Strait Hormuz, 30% through the Strait Malacca, and 8% through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Further, roughly 55% of known oil reserves and 40% of gas reserves in the Indian Ocean region, sir. The increased significance of Indian Ocean region in the world geopolitics is one of the reasons behind the Pivot Asia policy, which former United States President Barack Obama had considered. The route between Asia and Europe and the east coast of Africa is used by 2,000 ships each month. The piracy in the Indian Ocean is not a recent phenomenon. According to the IBM Piracy Reporting Center, the total number of attacks in the Indian Ocean region that could be attributed in Somali pirates speaks in 2011, and when 237 incidents were incurred and soared 557 during the 5-year period between 2010 and 14. This number fell dramatically, just 14 in the 6 years period between 2015 and 20, a drop that is widely regarded as a result of giant effort to reduce the crime at sea, sir. I would like to point out a few positives in the possible bill, sir. the applicability of this bill is exclusive economic zone. Sir, the Indian Penal Code is not valid for foreigners in international waters. Previously, pirates were prosecuted under the Indian Penal Code in 1860. However, Indian sovereignty is delimited by the outer
not only infringing the cooperative federalism, the principles, but also having far-reaching consequences as the national board can effectively block any proposal from the state. Sir, do you think that this country should be run only by the central government? You want only the union government, you dismiss all the state governments. Even other ways, you have a dangerous scheme of destabilizing opposition-led state governments. If you can't do that, you disrupt the government, you defame the government. Even the bill camouflages your intention of taking away every right of the state government, sir. I strongly oppose this bill because of this, sir. Sir, one more thing, sir. I will come to another clause. Sir Smithji, you should be supporting my bill. You are supporting the government without knowing the nuances of this bill. Now, clause 27 of the new amendment bill proposes for adding a new proviso to section 43 of the Principal Act. Transfer or transport of captive elephant for religious. Okay, I will know. And this should be prescribed by the central government. Sir, हम कहाँ सर? आप बिहार से सर? बिहार गवर्नमेंट का कोई इरादा नहीं है क्या सर? है? Sir, should we surrender all the powers to them? Don't we have a federal constitution? They harp on cooperative federalism every time from Prime Minister. But even for a bill like this, they get into the small nitty-gritty where the state government has some flexibility. Sir, I would say there are so many clauses which infringes on the rights of the state government. Sir, give me, this is very important. This deals with the federalism of this country. Sir, the chairman has been very liberal today. You should also talk his line.
According to chairman, I am going by
declare in the vermin.
Conclude.
Sir, declare in the vermin. Sir, whenever we meet the minister, he says, no, we cannot allow the wild boar to be killed in Kerala because the tiger has to be given its feed. Sir, aap tiger ke liye gaya? You're not for the human beings. You know the havoc being played in Kerala? See, I would say, in a single year, 88 people have been killed. Incidence of crop damage is more than 2,000, despite the fact that we have increased the forest cover. So don't blame us. We have been deliberately, consciously trying to, nurture the forest cover. But what are we being paid at? You don't allow us. Farmers are fleeing their cultivated land. Thakur Sahib, you are a farmer. Today you are being harping about the Dhartiputra, Karshakaputra, what more? You don't want the farmers to survive here? I would request the Honorable Minister, he should strike a balance. He should try to make sure that the rights of the states are protected. He should also make sure that the lives and the livelihood of the people are protected. And all these clauses which are detrimental to the principles of federalism should be withdrawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, John Britas.
Very good, very good.
Manni Anil Hegde ji made a speech.
Deputy Chairman, sir, I rise to speak on the Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill 2022. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the government for inserting provisions to control the invasive alien species. Sir, these invasive alien species have done irreparable loss elsewhere in the world and even in our country. These invasive alien species are not natural to our biome. Genetically modified organisms are also invasive alien species, sir. These need deadly pesticides and herbicides. These herbicides and pesticides harm the bees. Bees are, they are pollinators. Because of the pollination, we get more yield. Sir, आपने हाथी के बारे में, एलिफेंट के बारे में भी इसमें जिक्र है. मैसूर के पास जो बंडीपुर फॉरेस्ट एरिया है, वहां पर उस इलाके में एचटी कॉटन लोग का फसल वो उगाते हैं. वहां पर ड्रोन में ये हर्बिसाइड्स का छिड़काव होता है. वहां पर ये हाथी अधिक संख्या में वहां पर आता है कॉटन का फील्ड में, और इसके बारे में आज तक स्टडी नहीं हुआ है कि हाथियों के ऊपर ये जो हर्बिसाइड का छिड़काव के वजह से क्या हानि पहुंचा है. ये सब चीज का ध्यान में रखते हुए हमारे पार्टी का नेता और बिहार के मुख्यमंत्री जी और 2009 में उस समय का तत्कालीन एनवायरनमेंट मिनिस्टर को चिट्ठी लिखे थे जब बीटी ब्रिंजॉल का जो वहां पर जीएसी ने क्लियरेंस दिया था. और मैं आई वांट टू कंग्रेचुलेट जयराम रमेश जी, हु वाज देन एनवायरनमेंट मिनिस्टर. इन्होंने देश भर में इसके बारे में लोगों का पब्लिक हियरिंग 7 जगह पे रखे और लोगों को ऑपोजिशन को सुना, और उसके बाद उन्होंने मोरेटोरियम लगा दिए. सर, this I'm sorry, we got to know that on October 25th the GEAC, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee under your ministry, and has given clearance for GM, genetically modified mustard. Sir, India is a center of origin, center of diversity for mustard, sir, and because of this, these will need lot of herbicides, because of which the pollinators will die, pollinators will get extinct.
माननीय हेगड़े जी, माननीय मंत्री जी कुछ कहना चाहते हैं.
लेकिन मेरा ये कहना है कि चर्चा जो है वो वाइल्ड लाइफ एक्ट पे है, जीएम क्रॉप्स पे नहीं है. उसके लिए अलग से प्रश्न आएगा, मैं जवाब दूंगा. आप
पॉलिनेटर्स खत्म हो रहा है, बीज खत्म हो रहा है, इसके जिसको अमेरिकन टेक्नोलॉजी आप लेके आ रहे हैं. आप ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग के बारे में बात करते हैं.
माननीय हेगड़े जी, द सब्जेक्ट इज वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट.
ठीक, मैं एक आधा मिनट. सो माय अपील टू यू सर is that GMOs also should be listed as invasive alien species, and I request you, I appeal to you to take care that these invasive alien species are not introduced in the country, and because based on the precautionary principle, I appeal to you through the Deputy Chairman that we should not rush through the bill in a hurry. Thank you.
माननीय जोस के मनी.
Thank you, sir. Sir, this Wildlife Protection Bill amendment has a lot of concern in general and also in particular to the state of Kerala. As you know, Kerala is a small strip of land of the national level extent. 1.1% only Kerala has. And population, densely populated about 3.13% when you compare to the national level population. And we have about the forest area of approximately 27-28%, which is more than the national forest. And also the forest cover, it is 54% when you compare to the national
level, the government of India is aiming at 33%, we have 54%, sir. So it is evident that the state government or the Kerala state or the farmers, the people protect the forest and also the environment. Now, this bill has totally neglected the human-animal conflict is neglected by the bill. Kerala is one of the densely populated states in the continent. It has, as I said, the forest cover is very high. Since 2011, 34,875 instances of wildlife conflict were reported in Kerala. During the last decade, more than 1,300 humans lost their lives and more than 7,000 injured. This is what has happened in Kerala alone, sir. Now, the Wildlife Protection Act states the meaning is to protect the animal from the human. That is presuming that the animals will be inside the forest. Now it is about 50 years back, actually it was introduced in 1972. For more than 7 decades have lapsed. The situation was changed. Now the animal has started coming to the habitat area and attacking the human beings. Suppose for self-protection, if we kill the animal, we are behind the bar and the animal is protected. As the Bita said, if you ask the government why, even if you take up the wild boar, it's a huge population. The wild boar actually after the 2018, the flood, you see 40% of the wild boar animals are not in the forest, they are come to the habitat area. Now it is food for the tiger. Actually the tigers are coming out to the habitat area to catch the wild boar and they attack the human beings. This is the fact of life actually. Now for this we need to amend some suggestions are there to the government. That is one, declare the animals like wild boar as vermin, as their population has multiplied in 1,000 times, now lives in human habitations. Government should amend the Wildlife Act 1972 to allow the state government to declare wild animals as vermin as when the situation arises. Second, based on the existing wildlife law, people are not able to protect themselves against the attack from wild animals that encroach into their life space or agriculture lands. Amend the law to give protection to people who attack animals in self-defense and exempt from their charges. In lines of Motor Accident Claims Tribunal, set up a Wildlife Accident Claims Tribunal for granting adequate and timely compensation for the loss of life and agriculture crop due to the wildlife attacks. The last point, in order to prevent further loss of human lives and to control the damage caused by the wild animals in areas outside the forest. Thank you. 500 meters interior from these should be forest boundary, human sensitive zone, so as to restrict wild animals at the HSZ, that is human sensitive zone border. Because you see that Kerala House, the forest cover of 54%.
Shri Kanak Medla Ravind Kumar ji, please.
And the forest.
Shri Kanak Medla Ravind Kumar,
area should
now
be
you have to
inside
speak.
so that the animals does not
Please,
come
no,
into the
it's not going on record now. Please. Shri Kanak Medla Ravind Kumar ji.
Sir, thank you, Chairman, sir, for giving this opportunity. Sir, we have to discuss with this act, not in the Indian scenario, we have to discuss in the global scenario this aspect is concerned. Sir, I would like to state that the ecological security and the environmental security means the protection and the safety of the wild animals, birds and plants, they are also part and parcel of the ecosystem. That's why it's a prime responsibility that each and every citizen, as well as the entire society, to see the wildlife, especially wild animals, birds and plants are protected. Security and safety of these things have to be taken to be prime consideration. Sir, class 2, subclass 6, prior to this amendment there was a definition which was, it included cattle. Subsequently in the 1991 the amendment, it was omitted. At the same time there is a part 1 schedule also that is termed elephants have to be protected.
So my suggestion is that it is to be incorporated in the schedule because Asiatic elephant is there. It includes the Asiatic elephant but excludes the tamed elephant so that it can be protected. Sir, coming to the another clauses, it concerns clause 3 of the bill, which talks about invasive alien species. I will give you an example from my home state of Andhra Pradesh, how introduction of an exotic plant spices 1980s in Seshachalam Hills. It covers, it has distributed ecological balance in Chitturu, Kadapa and Nelluru districts of Andhra Pradesh. Now we have to replace it with native spices. Otherwise, the entire biosphere of Seshachalam, which is home for several epidemic plants, like lead sand, cycas, etc., would be destroyed. Clause 3, which deals with, it's a good move, sir. Secondly, Appendix 2, Schedule 4, Item 444, it has mentioned that Petrocarpus, it is the scientific name for red sandal tree, which is available only in Seshachalam forest in Chitturu, AP. It is smuggled out of the country by local smugglers. You might have seen, if you saw the movie, that there is a recently movie also taken in Pushpa. And sir, it is smuggled down our country, and any action for smuggling of red sander is under Customs Act, not under the Wildlife Protection Acts. It is because the tree is not in a scheduled species. So I suggest for consideration of the Honourable Minister to include the red sandal under the relevant schedule with the help of the taking action under the legislation remedy. Thereby we can reduce smuggling and save the red sandal from extinction. Because in Andhra Pradesh is a large, huge amounts, crores of rupees are getting by the smugglers, and the local government is also not taking care of to curb that practices. Sir, the next point are clause 62 of the bill empowers the government of India to declare any animal as vermin. We call it vermin as a nuisance animals, as they destroy our crops and kill livestock and spread diseases. It does not mean that we kill them and left and right. Nothing has been mentioned in this clause on the process to be followed identified by animals vermin. No transparency and accountability process based on ecological and social evidence has been prescribed. Sir, the movement of wild animal is declared as a vermin. It loses and its legal protection, and such animals become a domestic animal and can be killed, tamed or traded. So I feel it is ecological consequences which led to imbalance. Even the Supreme Court,
please conclude.
Animal Wildlife Board also that are given, categorically given certain directions. So the bill proposes to increase the penalties. That is also welcome. So, sir, these are the points I wish to bring to the notice of the Honourable Minister and would act accordingly, take the appropriate suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sri Ram ji.
धन्यवाद श्रीमान जी कि आपने मुझे इस बिल पर बोलने का अवसर प्रदान किया। वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन अमेंडमेंट बिल 2022 के बीच में जो सरकार के द्वारा माननीय मंत्री जी ने कहा कि साइटिस के बीच में इंटरनेशनल एग्रीमेंट होगा सरकार के द्वारा, तो इसमें कुछ शंकाएं मन में आती हैं कि हम इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे क्या अपने वाइल्ड एनिमल्स का या प्लांट्स का कोई ट्रेडिंग करने की शुरुआत करने जा रहे हैं। इसको रोकने के लिए क्या कोई व्यवस्था इसके अंदर है, क्योंकि साइटिस में ये बात देखी गई है कि कहीं ना कहीं से पूरे देश वर्ल्ड में लीगल या इलीगल रूप से वाइल्ड एनिमल्स या प्लांट्स का भी एक ट्रेडिंग की शुरुआत हुई है। इस पर कई सारी संख्याएं हैं। और दूसरी श्रीमान जी, माननीय मंत्री जी के आपके माध्यम से माननीय मंत्री जी से मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि कई सारी चीज़ें देखने को मिली कि वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन बिल के तहत जो आदिवासी जंगलों में रहते हैं या वनवासी जंगलों में रहते हैं उनको विस्थापित करने की व्यवस्था है और उनको सिर्फ 10 लाख रुपए का मुआवजा मिलता है। लेकिन इस 10 लाख रुपए में ना तो वो जंगल से बाहर जाके अपना घर बना सकता है, ना ही अपने जीवन का भरण पोषण की कोई व्यवस्था कर सकता है। इसको देखते हुए माने आपके माध्यम से सरकार से कहना चाहूंगी इस व्यवस्था को बढ़ा के 10 लाख की बजाय से 25-50 लाख रुपए देने की व्यवस्था की जाए। और साथ ही अगर ये जंगल जमीन किसी उद्योगपति के लिए खाली कराई जाती है तो उसके लिए कोई कठिन से कठिन नियम कानून बनाए जाएं ताकि ये जंगल और जमीन में रहने वाले लोगों को सिर्फ प्रॉफिट के लिए उन्हें नहीं हटाया जाए। और चूंकि अभी एक ऐसी घटना देखने को मिली है छत्तीसगढ़ के जंगल में हासदेव अरण्य को बचाने के लिए पूरे वहां पे छत्तीसगढ़ के आदिवासी भाई लोग एक हुए, लेकिन वो अपने हासदेव अरण्य को नहीं बचा पाए। उसमें 4.5 लाख पेड़ काटने का आदेश हुआ, 10,000 आदिवासियों को विस्थापित करने का आदेश हुआ, जबरन फोर्सफुली उनको विस्थापित किया गया, जबकि वो नहीं चाह रहे थे। उसके बाद वहां से बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियां आएंगी, वहां के वन संपदा के साथ ही जो वहां पे भूमि संपदा है, खनिज संपदा है, उसका दोहन करने का काम करती हैं। ये चीजों को मैं माननीय मंत्री से आपके माध्यम से कहना चाहूंगा कि इसके लिए कोई ना कोई ठोस कदम उठाएं, कोई ठोस व्यवस्था की जाए, ताकि उनका जो वनवासी हैं, आदिवासी समाज के लोग हैं, उनको बचाया जा सके। साथ ही मैं आपके माध्यम से माननीय मंत्री जी का ध्यान मैं अपने लखीमपुर खीरी की तरफ लाना चाहता हूं कि लखीमपुर खीरी का जो अधिकतम क्षेत्र है वन आच्छादित है, और तराई क्षेत्र होने की वजह से वहां पर कई सारे जीव जंतु वहां पे जंगलों में देखने को मिलते हैं। टाइगर भी हैं, भालू भी, हाथी भी है, और वहां पे चीतल भी है, हिरन भी, तमाम तरह के वन्य जीव देखने को मिलते हैं। और इन वन्य जीवों का और मनुष्यों का वहां पे रहने वाले लोगों के बीच में तमाम कई बार आपस में उनका एक द्वंद्व होता है, उसमें कई सारे हमारे लोगों की जानें गई हैं। पिछले 2-3 महीने के अंदर 6 लोगों की मौत टाइगर के द्वारा हुई है, और वहां पे सरकार की तरफ सिर्फ 5 लाख रुपए का मुआवजा है, जबकि वहीं महाराष्ट्र के अंदर कोई अगर वन्य जीव के द्वारा किसी भी व्यक्ति की मौत होती है तो 20 लाख रुपए मिलता है। तो ये प्रावधान सरकार लेके आए कि एकरूपता होनी चाहिए। एक मनुष्य की जो जीवन है महाराष्ट्र में 20 लाख रुपए है, उसी मनुष्य का जीवन उत्तर प्रदेश में 5 लाख रुपए का है। इस पर भी एकरूपता होनी चाहिए। मैं माननीय मंत्री जी की तरफ, आपकी तरफ से ध्यान देना चाहूंगा। थोड़ा सा एक लास्ट पॉइंट में कहना चाहूंगा कि चूंकि मैं लखीमपुर से ही हूं तो 2 बातें मैं लखीमपुर कर रहा हूं। एक तो ये बात, तो दूसरी बात कहूंगा कि तराई क्षेत्र होने की वजह से वहां पर बहुत सारे वेटलैंड इकट्ठे हुए बन जाते हैं बरसात के समय, और उन वेटलैंड के में तमाम तरह की जैव विविधता उत्पन्न होती है। तमाम तरह के बाहर से साइबेरियन पक्षी आते हैं जो ठंडक में वहां पे रहते हैं, यहां तक कि सारस और हंस जैसे पक्षी भी वहां पे अपना बसेरा बनाते हैं। लेकिन कुछ दिनों के अंदर देखने को मिल रहा है कि बड़े बड़े भूमाफिया अधिकारियों से मिली भगत करके उन वेटलैंड को पार करके वहां पर प्लॉटिंग करते हैं, मकान बनाते हैं। इसको भी रोकने की व्यवस्था मैं आपके माध्यम से सरकार से चाहता हूं। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद माननीय राम जी। माननीय Honorable Sri G.K. Vasan.
It's our collective responsibility to protect the environment, sir, which is essential for the survival of flora and fauna, sir. Sir, I would seek a clarification from the Honorable Minister, sir. One aspect, sir, traditionally the declaration of wild animal and vermin has been done without any scientific assessment or study. In the case of this bill, sir, it could now mean that species such as striped hyena, Indian fox, Bengal fox, etc. could be declared as vermin very easily. This could have far-reaching consequences for the environmental ecosystem and may result in an imbalance. It could also affect other endangered species which could be harmed due to traps set out for hunting and sale of vermin. Therefore, sir, there is a need for clarity on what types of animals can be declared as vermin. The overall sentiment and direction of the bill is something that no well-wisher of the country and the flora and fauna can deny. With these words, sir, I welcome the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mani Abdul Wahab ji. Honorable Abdul Wahab, not present. माननीय श्री वीरेंद्र प्रसाद वैश्य जी। माननीय वीरेंद्र प्रसाद वैश्य जी, नॉट प्रेजेंट। माननीय विनय विश्वम जी, ऑनरेबल विनय विश्वम।
सर थैंक यू।
ये वाला चल रहा है, ये वाला चला। अच्छा ठीक,
दोनों चलता है सर। I question the purpose of the bill and the intention of the government behind the bill. When I question the intention, I would like to remind the government and the Honorable Minister the famous quote from our traditional scripts, Ega Nidame Logam. The whole universe and the world is one place for a bird's house is Nigidam. That was the concept of our forefathers. I share that view. A communist I am, I share that view. The universe and the world is ega needam, in which all of us are supposed to live together. When we say all of us, it doesn't mean that you or me, the humankind, the rich people. No. This earth has a place for the wildlife also, for the plants also. All living beings should have a place there. That's the concept. If you allow me to quote Karl Marx, I will quote from him. Any quote? Karl Marx, quote. Of course. Sir, Marx wrote, man lives on nature, means that nature is his body, with which he must remain in continuous interchange if he is not to die. That means physical and spiritual life is linked to nature, means simply that nature is linked to itself, not man is a part of nature. This is the importance of nature, sir. I am asking you whether this idea is being shared by your bill. Indian scripts, modern scientific outlook, all are ignored. Sir, again from Marx, even an entire society, a nation, or all simultaneously existing societies taken together are not owners of the earth. They are simply its possessors, its beneficiaries, and have to bequeath it in an improved state to succeeding generations. That's our duty. So we have to bequeath it to the coming generations. And we of today are not fulfilling that. This government is committed to Paris Agreement. We chair the G20. In that way, we are committed to biodiversity, to the environment, in that way to wildlife also. I'm asking the minister very politely, many of the provisions of this bill contradicts the Biodiversity Act, many of it. If we have time, we can explain it in bits. So this is a trade-oriented act, amendment, trade-oriented. You're mainly for trade. Trade is for profits. Wildlife and all its subsidiary parts are for trade, for international trade. You talk of cities. Cities is regarding trade only, sir. The full form is clear. International trade in endangered species of wild fauna and flora. You asked here, what about GM?
Vinay Viswanji, please
sir,
conclude.
this actually affects the lives of the wild
conclude.
bees also.
Please conclude.
Bees.
Please.
Bees are important for the country,
Vinay
for the
Viswanji,
economy
conclude.
also. All these basic approaches are forgotten in this bill. So I request you, please reconsider this. Refer this
calling
bill
now,
to a standing...
please,
no, sir.
Please, all of you have
refer
taken
this
more
bill
time.
to standing committee.
Please.
Support me, sir.
Please.
I request him to refer this bill to a standing committee for further debates, discussion, to make it foolproof. I believe that he will agree to me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vinay Viswanji. माननीय राकेश सिन्हा जी।
उपसभापति महोदय, वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन बिल अमेंडमेंट बिल के समर्थन में मैं बोलने के लिए खड़ा हुआ हूं। मैं मंत्री जी को बधाई देना चाहता हूं कि वेल ड्राफ्टेड, वेल थॉट एक बिल को उन्होंने सदन के सामने प्रस्तुत किया है। जिस बात की चर्चा आज से 20 वर्ष पहले होनी चाहिए थी, कन्वेंशन ऑन इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड इन इंडेंजर्ड स्पीसीज, यह समझौता 1973 में वाशिंगटन में हुआ था। भारत ने 1976 में रेटिफिकेशन किया था। 1979 में इसका एक अमेंडमेंट हुआ था। 76 से लेकर लगभग 40 वर्षों तक हम इस पर ध्यान नहीं दिए। उपसभापति महोदय, भारत को कई बार फटकार मिला। 183 देश इस कन्वेंशन में शामिल हैं। 182 देशों से भारत के ट्रेड पर प्रतिबंध लगाने की भी धमकी दी गई थी। इसलिए मैं प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जिन बातों पर ध्यान दिया जा रहा है, जो अब तक उपेक्षित थी, लेकिन जो मानव अस्तित्व के लिए, पृथ्वी के अस्तित्व के लिए, हमारे पर्यावरण के लिए आवश्यक है, जो राजनीति का हिस्सा नहीं है। नई दिल्ली में चाहे जिसकी भी सरकार हो, पर्यावरण मंत्री और प्रधानमंत्री जो कोई भी हो, कुछ ऐसे मुद्दे होते हैं जो मानव के अस्तित्व से, मानव के हित से और पृथ्वी के संरक्षण से जुड़ा होता है, वो राजनीति का विषय नहीं होता। लेकिन दुर्भाग्य की बात है कि मैं जिस बात की आज चर्चा नहीं करना चाहता था, लेकिन मैं उस बिल पर आने से पहले मैं उन दो बातों की चर्चा करूंगा। आज विपक्ष से एक बात आई, यह बिल संघीय व्यवस्था के प्रतिकूल है। कैसे प्रतिकूल है उसका कोई तार्किक बात नहीं कही गई। संघीय व्यवस्था कोई नारे की चीज नहीं है। संघीय व्यवस्था की पवित्रता को यह देश जानता है कि राज्य और केंद्र के बीच हमारा संबंध एक पवित्र संबंध है। वह रिश्ता कोई अपॉर्चुनिज्म का नहीं है, अवसर का नहीं है। वह रिश्ता संवैधानिक बातों से सिर्फ स्थापित नहीं है, वो हमारी भावनात्मक बातों से स्थापित है। भारत ने 60 वर्षों से इन्वेजिव प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स के कारण 127 बिलियन रुपए का नुकसान पहुंचाया है 60 साल में। 127 बिलियन का तात्पर्य आप समझते हैं? खरबों रुपया आपने खो दिया। जिन ट्राइबल की बात कही जा रही है, इन खरबों रुपया में तो जिस सहरिया ट्राइबल की चर्चा करते हुए कहा गया कि चिता के लाने से वे ट्राइबल खतरे में आ गए हैं, उनको विस्थापित कर दिया गया है। गलत सूचनाओं के आधार पर सदन में ऐसी बात नहीं करनी चाहिए। सहरिया ट्राइब वहां पर है। मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को इस बात के लिए अभिनंदन करना चाहता हूं। जो चिता पहली अंतिम बार 1947 में देखा गया, 1952 में ऑफिशियली कहा गया कि चीता की समाप्ति भारत से हो गई, 8 चीता को लाया ही नहीं गया। हमारा जो पृथ्वी का परिवार है, जो हम अर्थ को मां मानते हैं और अर्थ में रहने वाला, चाहे पशु पक्षी हो, चाहे वनस्पति हो, चाहे मनुष्य हो, उस भारतीय संस्कृति और परंपरा में जो हम एक दूसरे से जुड़े होते हैं, उस चिता को लाने का काम प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जब किया, तो सहरिया ट्राइब के कुछ परिवारों को व्यवस्था के तहत, 20 से 22 परिवारों को व्यवस्था के तहत वहीं पर उन्हें विस्थापित किया गया। और सहरिया ट्राइब की स्थिति क्या हुई? जो सहरिया ट्राइब 2 जून खाने के लिए तरसते थे, पर्यटन के कारण सहरिया ट्राइब के लोगों की आमदनी, उनका पर कैपिटा इनकम बढ़ा है, जिस बात के लिए माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का अभिनंदन किया जाना चाहिए, भारत की सरकार का अभिनंदन करना चाहिए। सहरिया ट्राइब आज उन 8 चितों के आने के बाद से, 8 चितों के आने के बाद से उनकी पूरी पर्यावरण बदल गई है, जीवन का पर्यावरण बदल गया है। इससे पूरे देश और दुनिया को जानना चाहिए, सिर्फ 8 चिते नहीं आए हैं। भारत के वन्य जीवन के संरक्षण के दिशा में यह एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम है, और इस महत्वपूर्ण कदम को उन ट्राइब के कंधे पर हम पर बंदूक नहीं चलानी चाहिए। आप जाकर सहरिया ट्राइब से मिलकर आइए, जो नहीं गए हैं जाकर देखें। पर्यटकों की संख्या बढ़ने का प्रभाव क्या होता है, शायद हम नहीं जानते हैं। यदि यही पर्यटन बिहार में बोधगया के नाम पर, वैशाली के नाम पर बढ़ गया होता तो जीडीपी 7% बढ़ता। आप पर्यटन नहीं बढ़ा रहे हैं, हम पर्यटन बढ़ा रहे हैं। जहां मौका मिलेगा हम लोगों के जीवन स्तर को बढ़ाने का काम कर रहे हैं और वनवासियों के जीवन को सुरक्षित संरक्षित कर रहे हैं। उपसभापति महोदय, सभापति महोदय, भारत में पूरी दुनिया का 8% वाइल्ड लाइफ है। जो विविधता हमारे जीवन में, वो विविधता हमारे वन्य जीवन में भी है। उस विविधता के संरक्षण में हमें कहां चूक हुई? जब प्रधानमंत्री जी अमृतकाल कहते हैं तो अमृतकाल सिर्फ हमारे लिए ही नहीं है, उन पशु पक्षियों के लिए भी है जिनका भारत शरण स्थल है। हम जिस संस्कृति से आते हैं उस संस्कृति में सिर्फ स्वयं को नहीं देखते हैं, स्व को नहीं देखते हैं, हम स्व में की परिधि को इतना बड़ा करते हैं कि हमारे इर्द गिर्द आने वाले पशु पक्षी और वनस्पति भी आता है। क्या आपको मालूम है कि ऐसे पशु पक्षी 50% पक्षी विलुप्त हो चुके हैं? क्यों विलुप्त हुए हैं? एक कारण तो प्रदूषण और पर्यावरण का होता है, दूसरा कारण ट्रैफिकिंग का है। दुनिया में जिस प्रकार के ट्रैफिकिंग होते हैं, पहला ट्रैफिकिंग का नारकोटिक्स में है, दूसरा ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग है, तीसरा फॉरफिटेड चीजों पर है, और चौथा जो ट्रैफिकिंग में आता है वह वाइल्ड लाइफ के चीजों का आता है। इसका मार्केट कितना बड़ा है सभापति महोदय? $19.2 बिलियन का मार्केट 2021 में इस ट्रैफिकिंग से हुआ है। जो भारत के आंकड़ों में देखा जाए तो खरबों रुपए का ट्रैफिक पूरी दुनिया में हो रहा है, जिसमें भारत की भागीदारी 20% है। यदि 150 खरब है तो उसका 20% ट्रैफिकिंग भारत से होता है। जब हम उस ट्रैफिकिंग को रोक रहे हैं, जब उस ट्रैफिकिंग को रोकने के लिए हम कानून बना रहे हैं, तो उसमें कौन सी संघीय व्यवस्था को क्षति पहुंच रही है? क्षति उन माफिया को पहुंच रही है जो अपने स्वार्थ के लिए पर्यावरण को समाप्त कर रहे हैं, जो अपने लाभ के लिए संघीय व्यवस्था को मोहरा बनाकर हम पर आक्रमण कर रहे हैं। उन माफिया को जो वन्य जीवन को समाप्त कर रहे हैं, उनके लिए खतरे की घंटी नहीं है, उनको सीधा सीधा ये चेतावनी है। सभापति महोदय, 1,20,000 प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स इनवेजिव हैं। इनवेजिव प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स उनको कहते हैं जो किसी खास देश का नहीं होकर बाहर से आते हैं। बाहर से आने वाले हुए प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स जो स्थानीय अर्थव्यवस्था को, पर्यावरण को खतरा पहुंचाता है, यानी इकोनॉमी को, इकोलॉजी को और एनवायरनमेंट को जो खतरा पहुंचाता है, ऐसे इनवेजिव प्लांट्स हैं। इनकी संख्या 1,20,000 है, जो पूरी दुनिया के 6 देशों में है। उन 6 देशों में भारत भी है। वे देश कौन है? यूनाइटेड स्टेट है, यूनाइटेड किंगडम है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया है, ब्राजील है, साउथ अफ्रीका है और भारत भी है। यानी 1,20,000 प्लांट्स और एनिमल्स भारत पर भी हैं। उसका मैं एक नाम लेना चाहता हूं। उसका लोटाना कैमरे नाम का एक इनवेजिव प्लांट है जो 1800 ईस्वी में भारत आया था। आज टाइगर रीजन जिसको कहा जाता है, हिमालयन रीजन, उसका 1,54,000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर में ये प्लांट्स फैला हुआ है। इसका हमारे क्लाइमेट पर, इसका हमारी इकोनॉमी पर क्या प्रभाव पड़ता है? इनवेजिव प्लांट्स का हमारे सॉइल की प्रोडक्टिविटी घटती है, हमारे एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोडक्टिविटी घटती है, हमारा क्लाइमेट परिवर्तित होता है। यदि इनवेजिव प्लांट्स को समाप्त करने के लिए बात हो रही, जो 350 से अधिक आइडेंटिफाई किया जा चुका है, और 3% ऐसे इनवेजिव प्लांट्स हैं जिनकी अब तक हम जानकारी भी नहीं प्राप्त कर पा रहे हैं, क्योंकि दशकों से, सदियों से ये प्लांट्स भारत में आते रहे हैं।
ऑनरेबल मेंबर, यू मे कंटिन्यू टुमारो।
थैंक यू सर।
नाउ आई विल टेक अप स्पेशल मेंशंस। श्री बिप्लब कुमार देव,
मैं पहले सभापति महोदय को प्रणाम करता हूं, और साथ ही साथ मैं राज्यसभा में नया आया हूं और मेरा पहला दिन है, और जो हाउस में है आप सभी को मैं अभिवादन करता हूं, प्रणाम करता हूं।
ऑनरेबल मेंबर, like you,
मैं जानता हूं।
no, like you, it is also my first day. And we both must set very high standards. So we will avail the opportunity on some other occasion. Right now, confining only to the text.
Okay.
Thank you.
स्पेशल मेंशन में मैं त्रिपुरा के संबंध में उठाना चाहता हूं।
You'll have to read out the text.
राष्ट्रीय धरोहर के रूप में त्रिपुरा में विश्व प्रसिद्ध मां त्रिपुरा सुंदरी मंदिर के अलावा उनकोटी, पिलाक, भुवनेश्वर मंदिर और बक्सनगर तरीके अद्वितीय सांस्कृतिक विरासत के पुरातात्विक स्थल है, जो कि राज्य के पर्यटन को चार चांद लगा सकता है। इनकी देखरेख का जिम्मा भारतीय पुरातत्व सर्वेक्षण के पास है। संस्था अपना काम बखूबी कर रही है, मगर राज्य में इसका सर्किल कार्यालय ना होने के वजह से कई बार कम्युनिकेशन गैप की स्थिति उत्पन्न होती है। अगरतला में एएसआई का सर्किल ऑफिस होने से इन स्थलों के विकास और प्रचार प्रसार में राज्य के साथ सहयोग बढ़ाने में मदद मिलेगी। इसके अलावा राज्य में स्थित पुरातात्विक जो महत्व के अन्य स्थानों के अन्वेषण और सांस्कृतिक रूप से महत्वपूर्ण अन्य पौराणिक स्थलों के खोजने की और विकसित करने का भी सहायता मिलेगी। आज प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में समूचे नॉर्थ ईस्ट का विकास हो रही है। इनके मार्गदर्शन में त्रिपुरा सरकार भी प्राथमिकता के पर राज्य के सांस्कृतिक और पुरातात्विक स्थलों का आरक्षण, संरक्षण, उन्हें संवारने का कार्य कर रही है। पुरातात्विक महत्व के स्थलों को संरक्षण एवं सांस्कृतिक विकास के त्रिपुरा में पर्यटन क्षेत्र का विकास होना होगा। श्री मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में डबल इंजन की सरकार त्रिपुरा के पर्यटन के विशेष मानचित्र पर स्थापित करने के लिए प्रयासरत है। इसलिए राज्य में एएसआई की सर्किल कार्यालय की स्थापना से प्रदेश के पुरातात्विक महत्व और स्थानों को संपूर्ण विकास और उनके संरक्षण में महत्वपूर्ण योगदान मिलेगा, जो कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट क्षेत्र के भारत के अष्टलक्ष्मी के रूप में स्थापित करने के मददगार साबित होगा। सरकार से अनुरोध है कि त्रिपुरा में भारतीय पुरातत्व संरक्षण की सर्किल कार्यालय बनाने का कृपा करें। धन्यवाद।
श्री सुजीत कुमार, श्री संतोष कुमार।
और अंधविश्वासों के विरोध प्रतिबंधित करने के लिए राष्ट्रीय कानून। भारतीय संविधान की अनुच्छेद 51A वैज्ञानिक समभाव के विकास को हर नागरिक का एक मौलिक कर्तव्य बनाता है। इसके बाद भी देश की सभी हिस्सों से काले जादू और जादू टोने की खबरें बड़ी संख्या में आती है। ऐसी कुप्रथाओं के कारण अनेक नागरिकों की मृत्यु तक होती है। ये कुप्रथाओं संविधान के अनुच्छेद 21 द्वारा प्रदत्त जीवन के अधिकार का स्पष्ट उल्लंघन करती है। साल 2021 की राष्ट्रीय अपराध रिकॉर्ड ब्यूरो की रिपोर्ट के अनुसार मानव बलि के कारण 6 जान गई, जबकि जादू टोने 68 हत्याओं का कारण बना। साल 2020 में जादू टोने के कारण 88 मौतें हुई और 11 हत्याएं मानव बलि के रूप में हुई। वर्तमान भारतीय दंड सहित काले जादू और अन्य अंधविश्वासी प्रथाओं के कारण के लिए अपराधों को रोकने के लिए सक्षम नहीं है। हत्या की सजा देने वाली आईपीसी की द्वारा 308 भी मानव बलि का संजान का हत्या होने के बाद ही लेती है। भारत के कुछ राज्यों जैसे महाराष्ट्र, कर्नाटक, छत्तीसगढ़ आदि ने इन कुप्रथाओं के निपटने के लिए पहले है कानून बनाया लिया है, परंतु अभी भी ऐसा कोई केंद्रीय कानून नहीं है जो विशेष रूप से जादू टोना, अंधविश्वासों या तंत्र मंत्र के संबंधित गतिविधियों को कारण किए गए अपराधों से निपटना हो। राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कानून के अभाव में काले जादू की परिभाषा भी निर्धारित नहीं है। इन सभी कारणों पर विचार कर केंद्र सरकार को राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर एक व्यापक अंधविश्वास विरोधी कानून बनाने की पहल करनी चाहिए, जो सभी राज्यों और केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों पर लागू हो।
श्री प्रोफेसर मनोज कुमार झा।
Honorable Chairman, sir, with your kind permission and with the subject line, India's obligations and commitments under human rights conventions. So, every year, the Parliament passes domestic legislation that is consistent with India's obligations under various international covenants. However, India is also a signatory to various other human and socio-economic rights conventions that remain unfulfilled. The International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, ICESCR, requires that India to enact legislation to ensure civil and political rights for all citizens without distinction of any kind. The convention also talks about discrimination in the private sphere, such as landlords refusing homes to a certain section of individuals. However, no such legislation has been designed in India. The Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination in 2007 urged India to take more effective measures to tackle segregation and denial of equal access to health care and education to Dalits and Adivasis, which persist despite the Atrocities Act. Similarly, India is also a signatory to International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which prohibits advocacy of national, racial or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility or violence. Despite that, there is no separate legislation or strong laws on mob lynching. Further, under the Genocide Convention, India is obliged to prevent crimes against humanity through international cooperation. However, Rohingyas were expelled from the Indian territory and sent to a place where their lives and freedoms would be threatened. In light of this, I urge the government to honor India's international obligations and bring in necessary legislation and amendments. Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Shri Binoy Vishwam.
Sir, thank you. So my mention is regarding the fraud in union government's welfare schemes. Rampant frauds and leaks in several welfare schemes funded by the union government have meant that the intended beneficiaries bear the brunt and are adversely affected. According to the statement made by the Minister of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, over 150 crores of frauds have occurred under the PM Kisan scheme due to ineligible beneficiaries drawing benefits. Several FIRs have already been filed in this regard across the country. Similarly, the Pradhan Mantri Bima Fasal Yojana, a scheme to provide insurance protection to farmers who face crop loss, have given abysmally low sums. Farmers have had to face harrowing distress due to such low payouts. Their distress is further compounded by the frauds done by private insurance companies who have pocketed a large part of the money spent by the central government and state governments. Another project of the union government that was portrayed as one of the flagship schemes was the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which aimed to aid economically weaker sections of the society in building